Hello, everyone. Welcome to another riveting edition of Worcester Council Theater 3000. I just watched the Public Health Subcommittee meeting.
Oh, so sorry, Bill. So sorry.
On
I was just trying to adjust your mic, make you louder.
the petition to put a moratorium on homeless camp sweeps. That got sent to the administration instead of doing a vote on it, sending it back to city council, which means it's going to go nowhere, like everything else that's sent to the city administration. And that is effectively the death of the idea, and it's not going to happen. Leading up to the death of this idea, we had probably a good 5-10 experts saying how the city desperately needed to do this, that it's cruel and unusual punishment, and that it makes the problem worse. Mo Bergman countered this argument by saying, we wouldn't let people live in apartments without running water, so why would we say it's okay to live outside? Which is one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in my life. Quite frankly, it's insulting how stupid that argument is. And I am pissed off and defeated heading into a meeting that's probably not going to be any better than this. So how's everyone else doing?
Well, Bill, while you were busy with doing actual work, I was spending my evening reading through Jose Rivera's introduction on Nextdoor.com, and I have, in this time, come to agree with you that it is time to just start dropping the bombs on Worcester. There is nothing left to save. We should just, those of you that are watching, just grab your go bag, head to Auburn. It'll only be a couple months before you can start coming back. It's the mall. It's the safest place to be at this point.
Yeah, drop the big one.
Rivera is Jose Rivera is problematic. I am looking
But according
forward
to Nextdoor.com, Yenni, he drives a car. So as a fellow motorist, I can't think of a single reason not to vote for him.
Oh, but he won that championship all those years ago, so he must be qualified to run a city. Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, in the words of MLK, anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need to have heart full of grace, a soul generated by love.
Well, that would make sense in a place where people have a heart and soul.
In the words of Jose Rivera.
Unfortunately, having a heart and soul is in kind of short supply around here in Worcester. A big thing from the meeting is Maddie Castile, the director of public health, said that nothing is going to happen until people stop being so fucking shitty about the unhoused in Worcester. Let's see, what did she say? Think about all the people who are against citing a shelter. That's been our problem everywhere we go. People who are homeless need to be treated with dignity, and I think that's our major problem. It's just the mere act of treating the unhoused with dignity is the hurdle we have yet to climb.
Bill, who else from the council spoke at that meeting?
Mo Bergman, Sarai Rivera, and Attell. Sarai's the chair of that, and Mo Bergman and Attell are on that.
So was Sarai in agreement to send it to the administration, or?
It was Sarai's idea to send it to the administration.
Got it.
No one spoke against it. It seems like that was the consensus point going in. And it's going to spare us a frustrating council conversation on this idea, because we're never going to hear about it again. But I just think that the manager's been pretty clear in his public comments that he really doesn't want to do anything substantially different on the on the homelessness front. So I don't see his administration getting back all of a sudden with a recommendation that we do a moratorium on encampment sweeps. You know, he's been pretty committed to holding those up. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, Attell spoke in favor of ending sweeps because she was the one that put it on the agenda last week. And Sarai Rivera spoke tepidly in favor, but with caveats. Respecting private property and like public spaces, so like everywhere, like we can't, we have to respect private property rights, and they can't be in parks or other public spaces or sidewalks. So I support the moratorium as long as those two things are honored, which is like that's everywhere. Every piece of land is either private or public. So like essentially you're saying you don't want to do it. What's that?
We have so much park space.
Yeah.
What is the point in us not creating a space that they are technically allowed to be in, popping a bunch of porta potties there, partnering with the organization that I'm blanking the name on that does the shower mobile?
Yeah.
And Travis, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Talking to somebody in the background.
There's especially at like East Hill Park. There's 102 acres or something there. Surely we could find some space where people would be allowed to exist.
It would not be hard.
And then it would give us a consistent space where we could go to, where we could have the people who are doing the outreach, doing the helping these people get housing, and consistently know exactly where they are, get them the help that they need, and get them into permanent supportive housing, rather than having to chase them all over the city as different encampments pop up.
Yeah. As their trust in institutions and people that are actually trying to help them is eroded every week by the police and quality of life team employees who come and throw their fucking shit out and make them move across the street and just like treat them like vermin, basically. And, like a lot of people from national or two people from sort of like national policy organizations called into this meeting and said, that there are like significant constitutional problems with homeless sweeps and you're opening yourself up to a lawsuit by acting this way. And it does not help. It only makes the problem worse. And no one locally said anything to that effect, besides Mady Morales and Attell. We know how this is going to go. If it ever reaches the city council floor, it's going to be an 8-3 vote the other way, and it's going to be a couple months of hemming and hawing back and forth before that, so they can settle on a narrative that doesn't make them seem like monsters for voting against it, and then they're going to vote against it. That's just how it works.
Just working off of your comments there, Bill, for a city that has been spending a year discussing how to deal with actual vermin, it is hilarious to me that anyone in this council would feel as though they could figure out how to deal with actual humans they're treating like vermin.
Yeah.
What's wild too is I don't know. Maybe it's just people don't get out enough or what have you, but like it's not most mornings on Park Avenue. There are cats in sleeping bags in doorways all along Park Avenue now, businesses and whatnot. Like people are finally getting to the point where they're just, I feel like it's almost like being in public is safer than being tucked away somewhere. Well, no, I'm being serious too, because at least there's eyes on you. The likelihood of, something going sideways in the woods is far greater than something going sideways in public. And it astounds me that people are still discussing this as though it's like a uniquely Worcester problem, that it's not indicative of larger economic forces at play throughout the entire country. And that leading into, we're openly on a federal level discussing about like, we're going to finally declare a recession in the next couple months. How do people on a local level think that this is a problem that is going to self-resolve when we get to the point when it's no longer just the professional class that's seeing like massive layoffs as businesses start to tighten even more? It's astounding to think that like the best anyone can come up with at City Hall is just to not talk about it and it'll go away.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of the housing advocates, I didn't catch their name. I have to go back and fill that in. But they tied it to the overall housing situation. That like in Worcester, rents have increased in the past 8 years, 67%. Meanwhile, the average renter's income has increased 38%. And it's an untenable situation, which is getting worse. And the sort of people with like drug problems or psych problems or disabilities that are the most vulnerable to homelessness are just simply the people experiencing the thing we're all experiencing first and the hardest. You know, they're just the ones that fall through the cracks first, but that crack is widening. And meanwhile, our city councilors are talking about this like, oh, if only Holden had a homeless shelter, then we'd be on our way to solve this problem. They keep maintaining this rhetoric about how, it's the towns have to step up. The surrounding towns are not doing this. If we do a moratorium, homeless people are going to read about it in the paper and come live here. Like, it's just it's unbelievable the way that they think about it as like some sort of competition between all of the municipalities around here about who can treat these people the worst.
Correct.
Right. And it's like, if you treat them too good, if you try too hard to solve the problem, you're just inviting the problem on you. It's like, you're never going to get anywhere with that mentality. And unfortunately, absent like the state government or the federal government coming in with a solution, which is not likely, it is up to town governments and city governments to like build the infrastructure to support a growing population of unhoused people. And they're all feeling like they're incentivized to not try that hard, or if we do too good a job, we're going to get people from Springfield, we're going to get people from Boston if we try harder than them. And it just goes nowhere and gets worse on that sort of like, I hate to say the word, but like this like fucking neoliberal impression that city governments are competing with each other in a marketplace of fucking ideas.
Right.
It's just, it's a really it's not a unique problem to Worcester, but I feel like Worcester is dealing with it in a uniquely transparently stupid way.
Yes.
That makes it interesting.
Well, again, just off of your last thought, if we haven't learned by now that the marketplace of ideas is actually a Walmart on Black Friday circa 2017, then again, it's just time to start dropping the bombs. Like there's no hope.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think that, I'm ready for the big one. Randy Newman was right. And it's time.
Do you got a friend in us?
Yeah. You do not have a friend in City Hall. Let's just say that.
Do I see that we're getting more speed bumps?
Speed humps, Travis. Come on, don't confuse this.
Hey, I don't use the H word. No, like I hate them. I have a personal vendetta against them. I think they're one of the most ineffective traffic objects existing. They make everything slow down, namely first responders. They make cars have to slow down and accelerate, which actually puts more CO2 into the atmosphere. And cyclists hate them, and they can cause accidents.
All anyone has to do is search for cars getting air on speed humps on YouTube, and you'll quickly learn that everyone except for teenagers hate them.
Yeah.
I think that there's an interesting path that the city's taking regarding speed humps, though. Conversations that I've had with Steve Raleigh about how we're going to be shifting the streets in Worcester, especially given things that came up last time with the what they're going to be doing for Stafford Street and Grove and Burncoat. The changes that he wants to see happen are doing road diets. Which is decreasing the widths of roads, making them just feel like you can't go those super speeds on them. Doing things like speed humps are halfway decent temporary measures until you can get a road diet. And it's going to take a while to convert all of Worcester's roads because we've got 280 miles of it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's like...
To agree with you, Yenni, just to follow you off, the road diet can add parking. It can also add a protected bike lane, which would increase the multimodal access to all of our community. I'm sure you had other points.
Yeah, sorry, the Google alarm was going off for food being ready. I think that there's a space for these humps until we can get to that point. They're not good. They're not great. They are measures that kind of sort of help make residents of those streets feel better about them.
Yenni,
and that is what they're kind of trying to control, which is that mentality of the local residents complaining
right,
until they can get that.
Definitely remain standing for Mayor Sarah Robinson, who was a pioneer in
I have to help
here in
my
politics
roommate
in the
with
city of
something.
Worcester. Was very active right up in the last few years in the city of Worcester, showing up to events even from her out-of-state home, and she was the first elected female
Moment of
mayor of the
silence.
city of Worcester, and so let's remember Sarah Robinson. Thank you.
Yes, joint session.
Actually,
It is
I
a
think they're all
city
there.
manager and
Yenni, for Jack's question, it's the committee is there because they're honoring North High's basketball team tonight with for their state championship.
Share a moment sign for Tim Connolly, who was really a pioneer for the Telegram.
Yeah.
Someone who worked for Joe Worley too at the DA's office and the Department of Revenue, who spent his whole life really for the betterment here of the city of Worcester, and was a great reporter at the time when he was a.
For anyone in the chat, this is our good friend Shaun Connolly's father that's being recognized now.
Good on you, City.
So
Yenni, I just wanted to throw out there too that I've never heard you speak in any way that I disagree at all when it comes to traffic calming measures. My concern in the city, especially with the speed humps, is that one, it's similar to the conversation about dealing with the unhoused. We have an education gap in terms of what people want and expect as motorists in the city. And two, my concern is the only place we're seeing them rolled out really are the neighborhoods where we also put up signs that say, like, you can't use a street between 6 and 9 a.m. because the neighbors don't want to be disturbed. It's all just West Siders that think that their roads are special and shouldn't be used as roads for anyone but themselves. And that's not really traffic calming. That's just dumb.
Yeah, it's exclusionary, but it's also, I feel like there's an interesting combination of that in terms of getting people to not complain about their streets because they're sick and tired of hearing about them. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
No, totally.
I don't think it's a good tactic.
Yeah.
I disagree with the tactic. But I can understand why they're making it, because they've got this consistent form of, we're going to do these, we're going to do these, we're going to do these. But they don't put them enough places in the city to actually make a difference to the general public.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, like, we've got an item on the agenda tonight for turning my two-way stop sign into a four-way stop sign, because we just had yet another kid almost get hit, and I'm on a side street off of Newton Square. It just makes absolutely no sense to try and put speed humps all over the city because it's cost prohibitive. We have to contract it out because, just like everything else the city does, we can't just, buy the speed humps and manage them ourselves for some reason.
Yeah.
So we've got to pay an outside organization to cost even more.
Ooh, that's a new angle.
Sorry, and Andy. A pan.
Yeah, so I missed it, but they had an angle of everybody in the gallery singing the national anthem together.
Everybody here at the city council, but also all the residents of Worcester.
They're stepping up their camera.
Yeah. Looks like higher res too.
Now, I believe. And this is the 29th year that we've actually held a food drive. And every year, the support that we get in Worcester and throughout all of Central Mass and throughout the country, because this goes on for a one-day drive everywhere in the country, the support and the amount of food that we collect goes a long way toward helping the residents in need. So I'd like to thank everybody here, also the volunteers, United Waste, all the other postal unions all take part.
And Maine South Mom, that is Fiona right there next to the speaker, sitting down in the white over jacket.
So once again, it's always good to come here before
you. The only thing that I would come up with,
for years.
Yenni, that I think becomes a problem with satisfying neighbors who already are critical of the way other people drive in their neighborhoods is, I mean, it's one thing that I think the police department's always been really good about acknowledging is that if they're doing neighborhood traffic details, it's people who live in the neighborhood who abuse traffic laws more than anybody else. It really does seem like we're going to end up using the speed humps just as a way to deter outsiders
thousands and
from
thousands of
coming
people
into specific
who got
neighborhoods.
proposed
And I
stuff.
know
We
I'm
also
the
have a
biggest
little
violator of
button
that
where
reality
we're
of
eating
driving
there,
like a maniac
we're
in my
gonna
own
pick it
neighborhood,
up.
right? Like I
And
know
one person says,
every
we're gonna pick it up,
pebble,
we're gonna
you know, and I'm
manage
just that
it.
much more likely to
Right
take
through the
advantage of the
There's
neighborhood.
about over 20 food pantries here
That
in
makes
the city
And
of
that's why
sense.
they
Worcester
say
we
that
actually
most of
bring
the
food
accidents
to.
you get
And
into
if I
are
hear
within
Totally.
5
from
minutes of
someone
home.
during the day
Totally.
that would like to get some food, I make sure that they get some too. So we spread it out.
I don't
to
know.
all
I'm
the
just
The,
neighborhoods.
I'm with the road diets
job,
more
Bob.
than I'm
Good
with the
Yeah.
speed humps.
And no,
And
I mean,
protected
I
bike
think
lanes,
one of
not
the
that.
I know this
Go
goes
ahead.
on the
Yes.
spot, but
that's
the
one of my
29th year
issues
of
with.
the
That's what I
drive,
was going to
and
say.
this
With
is
the plan
the
for
27th
Stafford
year
Street
that I've been
is that they're
Thank you.
being
taking care of it
buffered
here in
by
the
a
neighborhood.
6-foot
Great job.
striped
Thank you.
line rather than actually putting in
Okay.
bollards or something like
Now
that.
we have some
And
honored
I
guests
feel like
here who
with
represented the
6 feet
city
of line
very
space,
proudly.
people
over
are
the
just going to
last
use
year
that as an
and have
additional
done a
lane.
wonderful job.
That's
First
exactly
off.
what happens. That's
And
exactly
second,
what happens.
like
I wanna
there's
welcome
plenty
the
of
school
space
committee
to
with
put in
us today.
bollards.
We have,
Why not put them in?
Laura Clancy, Tracy
It's
Noble,
not
Gemma Kamara,
from
and,
some
Monica
things that I've
McCullough,
seen from
Mr.
strong
Johnson
towns.
and Jim
There's
Johnson and Sue
a
Nealman could not make it
the
today, but send
cost
their
of the
congratulations
the
also.
small little
So I
bollards that
know
are
that,
flexible.
Mhm.
They
Ed
don't
Toomey and
cause
Jim Kamara
accidents.
apologize to bring you
Right.
in, so
They
if you
don't
might speak,
cause
Council
damage
Toomey
to
and
vehicles all
Gemma,
that
if
much.
any of
Like
you-
you got to have a really low riding car for that
Tina,
to
it
cause some
was
damage,
an
and then you've got
incredible
problems
honor
anyway
to
because you're
watch,
probably being illegal.
these young men
But the
really
with
move
how much you lower the
heaven
vehicle,
and earth to
but
win this
like
incredible
the
historic
protection that it
award.
provides and the
First
traffic
time
hump,
ever
because it
city
does it gives it
basketball
that
team
narrowing effect
has
visually,
ever won that. And
and we need that
couldn't
desperately
happen
on
by
Stafford
accident.
Street,
Kids
desperately to
working
decrease
together,
that,
working
and
hard.
without
They
adding things like bollards and
dedicated,
more trees
an
and
incredible amount
doing
of
the
time
bump
to
outs for the
understanding
sidewalk
what
cutouts,
teamwork
which are
is.
in the plan,
Their coach,
it's
how
not
everybody has been
going to
walking that
actually
I
decrease
haven't
the
been to
speed and make those
someone
crosswalks any
with me to
safer.
the games. My husband and I very often go.
Roads are a big thing for me.
Well,
Yeah,
Same.
no, like I said, that's why I've never heard you say anything that I would argue with. I just, I feel like the city's approach to things is not always fantastic.
and the incredible.
Yeah.
And I
Like you
trust that
look at
Steve
the-
Raleigh has the best of interests at heart when he's rolling things out, but he's also taking a lot of direction from counselors who have the worst of intentions with married up with the best with his best of intentions.
They did it.
I know I'm a minority in this city, but I tend to view things most of the year I'm on a motorcycle. You know, my car is secondary to my motorcycle, even in the winter.
Mates as
And
well, the family.
great ideas like bike
So I
lanes
can't tell you
nearly get me killed every day when I'm riding, right? Because it's Southbridge Street where, you know, the paint is worn off of the bike lane. People are constantly trying to pass me on the right when I'm in the rightmost lane as you're getting to the split. Can't remember the intersection there where it actually opens up to 2 lanes. We've got so many newer road construction changes that you filter into 2 lanes at narrow intersections, and people want to use a right lane as a passing lane as opposed to for a right turn as it was intended. If you're on a motorcycle, it's just a death sentence in this city with things, again, that are well intended but executed incredibly poorly and in the cheapest way possible.
Oh yeah, but that's exactly what you were saying though. With a protected bike lane, like if you protected the lane over by Walmart, they would re-educate pretty quickly that that right lane is no longer a right turn lane. It's just a protected bike lane, and you could do it with bollards. You could do it with those Jersey barriers. Like I've seen strategically, you could do it with just barrels. Like there's a lot of options that already exist within the DPW that is probably just sitting there collecting dust.
Teams at your school, but then also across the district, so that your behavior and your attitude in terms of leadership and family and team can also.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that's important to keep in mind is it's a brand new department.
Sure.
He's stuck with a lot of old policies, and the street bumps are part of that. It's a program that people just come to expect, and to get people out of his way to talk about the stuff that he really actually wants to do, because he's a strong towns proponent. He's all for getting rid of Strodes and all of that. the
Just
I
wanted to
think
begin by saying,
I
you
think
know, I'm
the
former Telegram and
the
Gazette
issue is
All-Star
he's
in the city of Worcester. I
being
represent
so
everyone
crunched
that
on
alignment in
trying
my
to
skill
implement
set.
some things. Like the thing
That
last
being
week,
said,
he wasn't
I'm
able to get
also
them
a
to
former
create
college
actual
coach,
diagrams of
history
what
coach
these
here in the
streets would look
city.
like because he had to get it in
And
before budget
the
season.
thing that sticks out for me, these
So
young
the
men,
proposals for it
and for
are
the
being
coaching
seen by
staff,
the general
and
public
the
without
coaching support
all of those
is
visuals, and people are going to then be
perseverance
able to
and
say,
fortitude,
meh, meh,
Mr.
meh, meh,
Chair.
meh, complain.
As a
Yeah.
coach and a
Conversation I
former
had with him
player, I
last
know
Monday
about
was
sacrifice.
that
These
he
young
would have
men
loved
and
to
their
put in
coaches are
bollards, but he
working.
couldn't afford them. And
You
I'm
know, the
just like,
folks are at the
there's
beach.
got to have been
Other
ways
folks are out
that those could have
having
been put
fun.
in.
They're
Yeah.
focused
There's got to
on
be
being better
grants
men
for that kind of
and
thing.
better
There's got to
people
be
and better
something. But he
players
doesn't have
for
the
the
time to
team.
even have his
And I
team research
think
it because he's still building his
anybody
team.
can
Yenny,
do
I
it.
don't want
I
to
feel
cut
like
you
we
off.
need to give him a little more time.
I
with
just think
no
we should listen to some of the. I mean, this team, for those who aren't aware, if I'm not mistaken, there's only one senior on this team, and they absolutely crushed the
experienced
state this
tragedy
year.
in their
I'd just
lives.
like to
There's
hear some of what
tragedy
is being said
this
about them.
family has dealt with from the bottom to the top throughout in their individual and family
I don't
lives
think they've
and their
announced
school
any
family.
tablings yet.
And they remained focused enough, Mr. Chairman. And that's something that is beyond measure. I think that will lead them all to increased positivity and achievement in their life, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to say that. And lastly, we know here in the city as a former player that we got a little bit sick and tired of hearing about Boston, Travis Best out in Springfield. We know, Coach, you're from Connecticut, but in Boston, they can't say nothing to Worcester anymore. This team right here, Division I state champs. And I can tell you this, fellas, not just alum of North High, but folks throughout the city, people who played high school who didn't, who played college who didn't, all are extremely proud of what you guys have achieved as a group and the coaching staff and making sure you're focused and successful. So I wish you continued success, and I'm very happy to see the tour that you've been on. You deserve all the accolades.
I have a funny story about this that I'll share once we're past it in the low point.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want Rise to say how proud I am of each and every one of you. A lot of you I know from St. Bernard's. Your school is in my backyard.
Dude,
and
this
you've
fucking
worked
thing that they
incredibly
do
hard,
about
incredibly
tying
hard
themselves to
be
whatever
where
it
you
is.
are today.
So fucking
And to
narcissistic
Al
in like the
Petway,
dumbest way.
as your coach and the rest of the coaches, all the work that you have done to be here today.
It's like, why
I'm
can't we just collect their
incredibly
thoughts
proud
and have
of
one
you,
person be
representing our city.
the city's representative?
Yeah, and it's also like, why can't you just say you're proud of these guys without like inserting yourself as having some fucking claim to being like a part of it? Right?
My husband and I went to every game.
Yeah, Kate Toomey's gonna do it if she speaks. That's what
She already did.
Okay, yeah.
She started us off.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pressure on you, I think, to make sure that
It was very
people
exciting
watched it
for
and
me
given a different look
to
from the
watch
other teams
this
from other
team
towns.
do so well.
And you handled yourself pretty well. I really want to compliment the coaches, Al Petway, Lamar Langford, Pat Weatherby, Eric Boss, for everything that you did with these kids and made them who they are today. It isn't just about basketball. It's about how growing up and experience of life. And
Yeah, Maine South
shouldn't have
Mom.
done. It's right. I was ready to put you in the sprints.
The like
back in come August,
middle
very quickly.
child
So
complex
what we're
that
gonna do
Worcester
is
has with Boston
each one at a
is
time, if the council wants to come
bleeds
around,
through everything. It's
each,
crazy.
basketball player in the
I'm
coach.
sure all of the councilors that are speaking tonight will go out of their way to pad the Parks Department budget so we can get new basketball hoops, resurfaced courts, and make sure that there are nets on every hoop.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
At the end. Does that sound good?
They won't just try to legislate neighbors being mad that the kids are loud at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I want to see them all come out to the Summer Classic.
You know, Larry Bird,
that?
he wouldn't have been smoking joints on the basketball court. He wouldn't have been smoking joints at 9 p.m. on the basketball court.
Oh boy, lag.
Yeah, I know, right? That's not just me? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's all.
That was stop motion.
What just happened?
Nico was squarely in the frame, so the camera didn't know what to do. It started to freeze on his handsomeness. It was too much.
That's the Eric Batista's coveted charter Spectrum Wi-Fi for you. He really wants it.
Did they really just take a picture of themselves and not with the team?
Holy shit!
That's sure shit what it looks like.
Oh my god! Is there at least like a coach or?
The coach is there.
Oh,
there we go.
Now
the coach. Now they're bringing in the team. I think they're doing.
And one by one.
Okay,
as each
of
them gets the. They're all getting a key.
I did a talk for a Worcester Public Schools high school class, a journalism class, and I won't say who the teacher was or what school it was, but it came up that like some of the kids were like, I'm tired of all this like basketball team shit, and then one of the kids brokered an insane conspiracy theory that North High stacks their basketball team by polling from all the other schools, and that there are kids on that basketball team that they've like never seen before and have never gone to their school, and it's like a college team would do, right? Like they poll from like every direction and like to just make one of their basketball teams wicked good. And I was like, damn, that's so interesting. I wish I had time to look into that.
Brian?
There's also a tendency for a lot of people to move around the city frequently because of the rental prices. So it makes sense that there's people that they don't know because they might be new.
The Mayor Jenkins, number 4.
It's like probably bullshit, but I thought it was funny. Like because they're like, man, I'm sick of hearing about this basketball team. They're cheating.
I think one of the other points that I was going to bring up was the housing thing on the agenda tonight. We've got a overview of all of the various housing plan type things, and I think that may actually give an opening for Attell to say something about the moratorium.
Okay.
But I don't know if she's going to. I hope she does. But I think the stuff that's in that plan, it's a decent overview of where we're at. Main South Mom was making this point on Twitter earlier. So I'm kind of actually taking it from her. But the whatchamacallit?
Next is Joe Okla.
The issue of there being not enough oomph behind the city actually getting a plan done. We've got master plans up the wazoo. We could completely handle them all we want. But this one is basically just a plan to make another plan. It is the goal of the document, the primary one, is to apply for a grant to create a plan. So I feel like there's a lot of good information in there, especially some really nice lists for anyone who's looking for housing assistance. There's lists of programs that are available that are in that document. The document is 16 pages long, attachment to the City Council Agenda 10.10A. No, 10.4A. And it's a very duplicated item, but this second section that's from the actual housing department has some really nice full lists that the part that city manager put in at the beginning does not have, so make sure to scroll down.
For anyone that isn't paying attention but is familiar with Key and Peele, I would like to recall that sketch they did where President Obama is meeting a different lineup and like shakes hands differently depending on the race of and gender of the person. That is actually happening right now, and it is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like when he's like, "What's up? What's up?" Oh, not you. Yeah.
I like that Sarai is standing a visible 6 to 12 inches away from Kate.
There it is again. Joe gets handshakes. Mo gets handshakes.
Yeah.
Everyone else gets fist bumps.
I just want to make it clear that me and Kate, not the same. You know, we might be on the same line here, but
Donna and Candy are trying to do fist bumps, but their knuckles started bleeding.
Oh my God.
Donna
Calorio trying to do a fist bump. That's so sick.
All right. And you asked what the Worcester Summer Jam Classic is. It's a basketball tournament that happens in Crompton Park. They moved it to Crompton Park last year. It's awesome. They fill the whole park with people.
Now we
Like,
got the
it's
coaching
just
staff.
people playing basketball. It's super,
Is our
super
head
fun.
coach Al Petway.
I think it's in August. I'm trying to get, I want to be a sponsor.
Those fist bumps are so funny.
Yeah, they really are.
Ooh, I'm fist bumping the youth.
Damar's not here, but Damar Langford was one of the coaches.
But yeah,
here.
we went last year, and they have these
Pat,
super cool
what do we-
jerseys that are just covered in logos, and I really want a Hunchback Graphics logo on their jerseys because
that'd
that
be
would be cool as
awesome,
hell.
Thank you. And that other assistant coach was Eric Boss. Eric?
I'm gonna need more than that.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but I don't doubt it. Wouldn't come as a surprise. Let's just say that.
And not the. Now the next person here was.
Let's just say that Connie Lukes has been on the record
team
about
manager.
Puerto
I watched-
Ricans.
I watched Anna in action.
I just realized I was muted. Someone tell me. The things that she said were not just racist. They were also anti-LGBT, because her comments were basically, there's too much identity politics and we need to back off of all of the racial and sexual stuff. I don't need to know who my counselors are having sex with.
That's awesome. Says the counselor who literally ran on being Albanian for like 30 years. That's great.
Oh, by the way, Yenni found this awesome photo of it.
Just know it's like
Yeah.
Kevin Petway there, the head coach
Wow.
there, and,
That's a real sneaky bitch.
So that was from a
Oh,
post that Sue Mailman made on Instagram, and I had to send it to Travis. I couldn't. Connie Lukes is a former mayor. She was on the city council forever. She lives about 3 blocks that way. I encounter her in my neighborhood, and she's a interesting character. She did some halfway decent things. Mostly not.
I'm unfamiliar.
Well, she was mayor a bunch of a bit of time ago. And she was mayor during a time where people were not paying attention to the city council. So, yeah. She's not quite friends with Wayne, but she is extremely friendly with. Was very against the shelter. She comes to the Newton Square Neighborhood Watch meetings, so I've met her fairly frequently, and she does usually side with Wayne at those meetings. So
There's our boy Nico, looking fly.
Hey, Nico, Nico, you photobombing? Oh, they finished.
And this whole gallery is
Yeah.
going to clear out.
And now we continue to waste our time.
Yeah, we've been going at this about 45 minutes, and now we can actually get to business. Does not bode
Yeah,
well
now we
for
just
the
have to wait for
evening.
everyone to sit back down.
Wasn't it great how we all took credit for their win?
Yeah.
I love Vittel over there using hand sanitizer. As somebody who currently has COVID, I appreciate those kinds of things.
Rachel Monterez.
thankfully the inhaler and the prednisone and the Paxlovid and the antibiotics for the pneumonia I was developing have kicked in, and I'm doing better.
Sounds like a
You
nightmare.
were good.
Yeah, glad to
Oh,
hear
it
it.
wasn't fun.
Approval of
I had
the minutes?
104. I had
All those in
103
favor,
fever
post
when I
order.
was watching last week.
Next up, we
That's
have
why I
public
wasn't on.
Jesus.
Public participation.
Yeah, I was
Person may
not
speak for no more than
not
2 minutes.
good.
Is your name,
Um,
say your
yeah.
residence, and item number?
My doctor almost told me to go to the ER. My breathing was pretty rough.
Can
I
you
was
go-
not able to get a
Can you go
sentence
find
out.
what the gentleman wants there?
But thankfully, my oxygen saturation levels never got down low enough for her to want me to do that.
Hi, Chris. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Chris Horton. Some of you know, and I am a resident of
Chris is
Worcester,
awesome.
and I have been a
Thanks, George Deception.
volunteer with the Worcester Anti-Foreclosure Team for over a decade.
Oh,
During that time, I have participated in protests of easily over 100 evictions. I'm here speaking on behalf of resolutions 12B, 12C, and 12D. The issue is
oh, buddy, you're gonna run under your 2 minutes quick.
our reading of the law is that constables are required to be registered and bonded in the city or town in which they are performing an eviction, and that it is ultimately the responsibility of this city government and this council to license them or approve their license. And that has been a law that has been widely ignored. The courts have been appointing special process servers to effectively act as police agents in Worcester without the approval of the Worcester city government. And the police have been often going along with it because they were appointed by a judge. Well, the housing court doesn't get to say who has police powers in Worcester. You do. And I just want to give one little illustration.
Do they?
When
Do
we
they?
show up at an eviction, we're there to protect the homeowner from the constables acting prematurely while issues are still being worked out in the courts. And the police are there to protect us as well as the homeowners. And
Are
we have
they?
a constable in Worcester. I won't mention his name, but he's one of the few we deal with in Worcester who's actually registered in Worcester. He's not registered in Leicester. And in Leicester, we had an eviction and the police withdrew for whatever reason, leaving him alone. And we're working with him, trying to work out what the ground rules would be for this eviction. And he said several times, and I quote exactly, "I can do anything I want." And then he proceeded to do that, and some people got seriously hurt. And so this is not something I think that would have happened if he was bonded and registered in Leicester and responsible for his behavior there.
We're talking
There's
about
an extra layer of protection that we need, and it's in the law, and we need the city to demand that it be upheld.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. What's your name, say your residence?
Hazard, City of Worcester.
I'm gonna speak as well. So
You can see
I'm misremembering. It was Kate Toomey, a constable at one point.
in Worcester County
I don't remember that, but let's start that rumor.
appoints
I
a
feel like
constable.
I don't know.
I think that there's a legal question here. It's Worcester County. So we have to find out whether or not, if he or she, the judge, appoints them, if they have jurisdiction anywhere in the
That's what Chris
country.
was saying, Jack.
That's a question that needs to be looked at. As a landlord, if a judge sends somebody to my house, I am not questioning that judge's authority. I'm going with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, my name is Megan McCraw. I live in Worcester City, and I'm here to publicly comment on items 9K and 12G, both of which pertain to the feasibility of implementing a paid family and medical leave plan for the City of Worcester employees. I am a current City of Worcester employee, and I am currently pregnant. And I am petrified what that means for me when I give birth. While this is something I have wanted for many years, it does not come without its own anxieties, particularly surrounding how I will be able to provide for my family during the 3-month period of healing and raising a family following the birth of my child. The city version of leave is 3 months off unpaid, which is truly something that I cannot afford. And I have actually been told by my supervisors that some people within my department end up not taking off the full 3 months simply because they can't afford it. I currently only make $19.26 an hour, and so when I am told that I need to start saving up now, I am filled with a sense of dread because the money that I make goes to all sorts of bills. It goes to my food, and I know that me taking that loss of $19.26 an hour, my monthly pay is my family is going to miss that. Me and my spouse can simply not supplement that, and I am at a loss as to how I'm supposed to. What I am asking for is the opportunity for the City of Worcester to do the right thing by its
Have you tried wearing a body
to
camera?
allow us to opt into the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act that they have within the state.
Get a clean
I have
$1,300 if you do that.
I love my job.
The cops would
and
love those,
what
Woody.
my dream job is. I work with children at the library within the City of Worcester, and I love my job. But I've oscillated between, do I go back to being in food service again? Because at least at that point, I will be provided the paid family medical leave. Should I do that? And
I literally just had another car just completely blow through the intersection.
Just a reminder to anyone in the comments, the United States is one of just 11 countries on the planet that do not offer paid family leave. And if you look at a map of those countries, chances are good you won't be able to name the other 10.
For certain departments and how they are not treated equally amongst other departments, I have an issue with that. And I think there is a very fair way that we should be treating our city employees.
USA.
If you want to see growth within the city with employees
This is the most
that
America
care about
fuck
their
yeah
jobs and that want to do the
public
right thing
testimony
by
I've
the
ever
city,
heard.
the people who live in the city of Worcester. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, I'm Carl Johnson. I am the homeowner of the house in Leicester that was previously mentioned. Last year I was living in Worcester while I was out of my house. I just want to make sure that you folks know that the constable which you licensed for Worcester has been proclaiming himself a constable in other places, which I believe is a felony, but I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. Your lawyer can check for you. And I'd hate to see that Worcester gets jammed up because someone who is using the constable powers that you have issued is using them illegally in other places. This gentleman, who's, again, I won't mention his name, but anyone that's interested, I'll talk to later if they would like, not only proclaimed himself a constable when he was not licensed in Leicester, but he also was responsible for the people that were there when they assaulted some women that were at the protest at my house. He was also there violating the court order from the judge, and he's been found guilty of that already. So that's not just my word, that's the court statement that he was guilty of that. And I just want to make sure that when you folks are licensing a constable for your
Oh, come on.
municipality, that the actions of
This
the
constable sounds like a real jerk.
for their actions, and that you
This
are
is the
aware
homeowner
of the
that
fact they
essentially
have been
got
done,
him out there,
so that
right?
you don't get stuck between a rock and a hard spot like I was. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fascinating. Grumpy Wawa.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Olivia Douglas, and I work for the city of Worcester. I work at the library over here. And I would just like to speak to the item number 12G, the importance of paid family medical leave for the city of Worcester. So I have been working for the city of Worcester for about 3 years now, since moving here with my husband from Georgia in 2020. Since we moved here in 2020, my husband and I discussed the possibility of starting a family. I started looking into paid family leave and found that while the state offers it, the city does not. If an employee has a child or adopts a child, they have to use sick or vacation time and short-term disability in order to get paid for the time they are out. For many employees, myself included, this means coming back from their leave with 0 time. That leaves no wiggle room for anything bad to happen, or even for doctor's appointments for you and the baby. With inflation higher than it has been in years, most families don't have the financial ability to take unpaid leave. I know that I could not. The effects of not having paid family leave has left many families struggling. My friend and coworker Jess is a prime example, and whose story I will also tell. Jess, who has been working for the city for 8 years now, used all of her sick time in order to be able to stay at home for 3 months with her now 5-month-old daughter. The other day she came to work not feeling well, but was unable to leave due to not having sick time. She barely has any time to take her daughter to like routine checkups and checkups for herself as well. This really needs to change. There needs to be more support for our families. I know the city is currently trying to retain employees, and I think that what better way to entice people to work and stay with the city than to provide them with paid family leave. So, and if that's okay, I can share her story. So this is from Jess, who also works for the city at the library, a coworker of mine. So not having paid family medical leave has been a huge burden on my family and me. Working for a city municipality is supposed to be beneficial as we are as a city, family, and community. Unfortunately, too often it does not feel like that at all. My husband gets more support from his European corporate office than I do here in New England, where I was born, raised, and where I live and work. I struggled to have children. I actually lost 3. No one in the city cared. There is no bereavement plan for women who suffer from miscarriages. Paid family medical leave would have covered this loss and the recovery time, but the city does not offer it, so I come to work in pain physically and mentally. When it came to my 4th pregnancy, I was heavily monitored by doctors. They wanted weekly checkups at first, then they spaced it out. When my pregnancy neared the end, they wanted weekly checkups. When it came time to deliver my child, who came 4 weeks early, my sick time was too low to use it entirely for maternity leave. The city requires you to use the last 4 weeks of maternity leave using your paid sick time. If I would use those 4 weeks however I wanted, it may have been different. Instead, I had to take a combination of short-term disability, which I qualified for 6 weeks, but with their 2-week elimination period, I only got paid 60% for 4 weeks. The irony here is the paperwork I received from the doctors that said I needed 6 to 8 weeks to recover, and even then, most women, including myself, did not feel recovered for well beyond that period, especially given my circumstances with my losses. In addition to short-term disability, I will also take unpaid leave and most of my remaining PTO, all to spend as much time as possible bonding with my newborn and adjusting to life. I came back to work with 1 hour of sick time remaining. How can I rebuild any type of PTO as I take my daughter and myself to the necessary doctor's appointments to make sure that we remain healthy? If the city offered paid family medical leave or something similar, this would not be an issue.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello. My name is Thomas Sachs. I was evicted from a house in Worcester in 2019, and I live in West Boylston. I support 12B, C, And D, I don't need to tell you how expensive housing is in Central Mass. It seems to me that these court officers have a lot of power, not only in terms of physical force, but financial, possible financial gain. But I don't know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Your name, city of residence?
My name's Rebecca Ranieri, and I live in Westboro, but I'm hitting 10 years of service this August at the Worcester Public Library. I'm also here to talk about paid family medical leave. In my time at Worcester Public Library over the last 10 years, I've been on family medical leave 3 times.
This staggered approach to some of the most depressing shit ever is
For my children, and
both
every
really
single
jarring
time
and
I
kind of a
used
nice
every
presentation.
bit of sick time and vacation I had. So
It really is an effective portrait of the failure of a crumbling empire to take care of its servants.
Back to work with no paid time off, and I'm doing story times with the flu. My kids, I used every bit of vacation, every bit of paid sick time, and still wound up in unpaid status. And I am easier to fire for seniority. My retirement date pushed back. And unfortunately, with my previous health issues, I can't wait the 4 years it takes to build up a fully paid medical leave. So I had 2 kids, and 15 months after having my youngest child, I still have 1 week of sick time. And every time I get sick, I have to try and go, can I stay home? Or do I need to push through and go to work because I don't have enough to push through? My whole family got COVID. You know, you come back with nothing, and then you're going into these situations where you want to serve and you want to do well, but you have to choose between your financial situation, and it shouldn't be that way. And you shouldn't be easier to fire because you have a child, and you shouldn't be pushing back your retirement because you chose to have a family. And I'm hoping we can get paid family medical leave for everyone and stop having to make so many difficult choices, because pregnancy is also expensive. I was high risk. I had to drive into Boston every week, and I'm actually still having appointments 15 months later from complications from having had children. And I'm probably going to have another surgery within the next 2 years because of those complications. So going into that and budgeting that sick time and always having in the back of your head, am I going to be easier to fire down the road when I'm sick? Can I afford to take off this time?
Holy shit.
Very difficult. And I don't think we should be in that situation. We leaned on my husband's company. He does all doctor's appointments.
Pregnancy destroys bodies.
With my children. He's started taking
People don't
time
talk
off
about
when
that
my
enough.
kids are sick, because I burned most of my vacation through COVID, staying home with them after I went past the 3 days. By the way, I'm so thankful for those 3 days, because I can use 3 days of my sick time towards my children now. But with my first, I could not. And I just think families are winding up in difficult positions that I love my job. I love the kids. I love the library. I love the city. I hope to stay here. But if I moved to the private sector, I'd have a better deal for my family. And I don't want to be forced ever into leaving the job I want to be in because I don't have the safety net I need to stay there. Thank you all very much for listening.
Okay, seeing nobody else, we'll close this part of the meeting. Chris? Oh, maybe. We have 4 people. Yep.
Hi.
Now we've got 2 people online. We'll start with Yenni Desroches.
I'm Yenni Desroches, and
Is your name and city of residence?
hi. I'm Yenni Desroches.
Well, we heard that.
I am speaking on a couple of different items, kind of rapid fire. There's a issue on the agenda that is directly affecting me. It is next to my house right now, and 9G, where we have a two-way stop currently, but I'm hoping to have it turned into a four-way stop alongside the people that are in my neighborhood with me that I've spoken to about it. I feel like there is, the issue is that we have people speed from June Street up Nevada Street, and they've almost hit a couple of kids while I've been sitting here for this meeting. It has been, I've seen, oh, look, someone else literally just did it as I'm speaking. That's the third tonight. So we really could use some extra assistance here with an additional stop sign. I also want to make sure to express my support for 9K and 12G. Please support the addition of PFMLA. And in terms of 10.4A, the housing plan related things, I'm worried about the fact that it's a plan to create a plan. But I also wanted to point out that the plan for $50,000 to fix code violations is great. But as somebody who has previously attempted to go through some of the landlord programs, it seems like they are geared towards slumlords pretty exclusively. And there needs to be some kind of plan for small landlords like myself who try to keep up with code changes, but sometimes need help keeping the apartments affordable because updating things for code changes can be very expensive. On 10.10a, speed humps not super effective. We need more road diets. I know Raleigh is on our side with that. And then one last thing, 12a with the state of the lakes. I'm really excited to see all of this happening with our blue spaces, but I would caution us to make sure that we are paying attention to the sides of the lakes and waterways as well, because we have massive problems happening in our city with things like Japanese knotweed that are overgrowing the banks and then clogging the waterways. And if we don't deal with what's going on the banks, we won't be able to heal and improve our blue spaces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the next speaker
Nicely
identifies
said,
Bryan.
Yenni.
Nice
Come on,
job.
unmute your line now.
Hi, it's Brian
I
Dutrimble, Worcester.
love having a
I'd like to speak
detachable
on
microphone.
Items 9K and 12G.
Well said, Yenni.
Thank you.
My partner who spoke earlier and I are expecting a child in October, and we don't know how we're going to make it work financially because we'll be missing out on 3 months of their pay. If we really want people who aren't rich to be able to work for the city and thrive in our community, we need to sufficiently support those workers. And one easy way to do that would be to opt into the Massachusetts Paid Family and Medical Leave Program. It should be noted that the PFML isn't some expensive thing like ShotSpotter or Body Cameras.
Yeah, Brian.
In fact, the cost burden, which is 0.63% of an employee's wages, can mostly be pushed off onto the employee. Opting city employees into this program would be both simple to implement and good politics. I'm not sure why the previous city manager chose not to opt in when the program was created, but we should rectify that mistake now. Please do the right thing and opt into the PFML program so that people don't have to choose between having a child or working for the city of Worcester. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker identifies Eric Stratton. I'm trying to mute Eric now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eric Stratton. I live in Worcester off of Salisbury Street.
Three in a
I'm calling in
row.
on a few items. The first one is just sort of a pet peeve of mine. 7A, this is regarding Eversource installing conduit. I've been reaching out to them for now over a month to try and schedule them just reseeding the lawn that they tore up at my house when they moved my gas meter. Eversource has been completely unresponsive to multiple calls, emails, the letter that we had from the work they did on our street. I have had some luck with some of the city employees, but if any help from the city council and getting Eversource to actually respond would be greatly appreciated. I do apologize for the background noise. I'm holding my 9-month-old because I am on parental leave right now with my employer, which I will get to that in just a minute. I was also calling regarding 11G with the city opting in for parental leave. This is essential to young and growing families. We need this time off, and frankly, that we can't afford to take unpaid time. It isn't fair to ask these employees to take unpaid time because the city has simply chosen to opt out of this. I think it's really essential to supporting young families, to supporting mothers, and frankly, for the best interests of our children to opt in for that policy. As the previous caller mentioned, the cost is minimal. It helps with job retention. It sounds like, frankly, you have a number of city employees who really do love working for the city. And I think that it goes a long way for retention, for really improving the quality of life of our city residents and for our city employees to help support them and their families. So please, I would urge you, do the right thing here, opt in for this. We are the second largest city in New England and we need to act like it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nico, anybody else?
Nice job, Epic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next speaker is Samantha Schwab.
Well said.
I don't know if Samantha
Hi.
listens to us too, but
I'm Samantha. I am a resident of Shrewsbury, but I lived in Worcester for 6 years and only recently moved out. I am calling in support.
Nice job, dude.
I think we can
live
officially announce that we
in
should just be taking over the council meetings at this point.
D and E.
Like, just hearing y'all participate gets me real just proud that we've been doing this for so long. Like, I don't know, it feels like we have an effect in just a tiny little
I
way.
think that the words that people have already spoken on those topics do a good job of summarizing it.
I've had it commented to me whenever I go out, pretty much to anything city related, that people
my
are
support
excited that we do
for,
this.
the
So
parents
thank
that
you
will
all
leave
for being here,
one.
because
I'm
without
sorry, I
you,
can't
we
remember
wouldn't
the
be able to
number.
do this.
But I think that
Yeah,
a
for
great
sure.
way to take care of your employees and make sure that people who want to start families are able to work for the city of Worcester. Yeah, again, people before me did a great job of summarizing it, but
Dude, Candy Carlson has people
Yeah,
watching.
sorry.
That's so funny.
that's it.
You did a great job, Brian.
That poor
Mr. Mayor,
fucking,
the
those
last
poor
speaker
people
identify
who have to
his,
watch
phone
this
number. I'm
program
trying
and
to
then report
recognize the
what
phone
it
number
is we
now.
said about Katie
The
Carlson to
last four
her.
digits,
That's
5591.
awesome. Hey, if you're that person, you're listening right now, sorry. You know, that sucks. You should find something else to do. Stop
I hope
working
she's
for-
paying you.
Yeah, she better be paying you.
5591.
If you want to press *6, you'll be able to unmute.
Here he is. Oh, you had it. You lost it.
It's been a minute since we had one of these.
Yeah, I know.
One try, pal.
Almost have this part ironed out.
Yes,
It's only been
Ross,
3
I'm
years.
so sorry, I don't know how to use this technology.
Siguro Sally, no, you do not,
Grace
but it
Ross,
is
10
recommended.
Oxford Street, Worcester, and I'm here in support of 12B, C, and D. The issue of the city taking control, which is provided by the legislature and only under this legislation, to appoint constables. As many of you know, I ran for city council twice. I care about the well-being of the city. I care about the well-being of our
Wait,
residents.
who was this?
And
Grace
quite
Ross?
honestly, having accountability for the constables has both legal, financial, and moral elements to it. Financially, if a constable is properly licensed by the city, they pay a bond. And if they do anything in our city that's not legal or harms anybody, then the city can be sued. So if the city's allowing non-Worcester constables to serve, the city is also creating liability
No,
for
but we love
itself
getting sued.
that you don't get a bond
The one
from,
thing
and
we're
you have
good
no
at.
control over the character
Yeah,
of the people.
they're going to go in
who
executive
are
session after all
constables.
this
And
to
I've
talk
talked
about
to
our
the
loss
chief
to
about
hold
this
it.
any number of times. The city having the vetting authority, they have to now have 5 people speak for them, including a local lawyer. And we are complaining, and the reason we had asked for something to be clarified on this is because there's a property where they're
We
trying
still worked
to
in the
start
shot
a
spotter
round of
thing, and that was
evictions
rad.
again. But 5 years ago, the same outfit out of Lowell that is not licensed here and actually doesn't even have a doing business as here and doesn't have even registration at the state as a company, came to this location. I got assaulted, thrown through a door enough so that people said my feet went all the way up in the air. I landed on my back.
Wait, was she the one that got
homeowner
thrown in?
occupant was kicked in the chest so that she was pushed through a wrought iron
One of them.
railing that broke, and she fell into a bush. And this same supposed constable, who's only licensed in Lowell, had taken a crowbar and almost broken someone's wrist. If all three of us had sued the city, and these guys aren't from Worcester, we'd have another major financial lawsuit. We wouldn't do that because we know it's not the city's fault. But if the city's not going to insist that it vet any constable who's going to come and physically restrain somebody, essentially arrest them, that's called a false arrest if I don't have police power. And somehow there's some conversation going on that a judge is allowed to supersede what the city council and the city manager has vetted and what the chief of police has vetted. Then what that means is that we are supposed to have three separate powers of government. The legislative branch of my city is you, my city councilors, many of whom, I think all of you practically, I've voted for. And the
Grace, could you wrap it up too?
executive branch, yeah, I hear you, but there's
Lost a
story
vote, Joe.
going on out there that somehow a civil judge can override what the legislative branch of our state, of our city government does, and it can't possibly, and they can't possibly give police powers. And we need to know we're safe in the city of Worcester. And I know our chief of police around evictions
Everybody wants
and
to learn
around
how to be a
foreclosures
constable.
is with us, but you guys have got to back him to make sure that you're the ones who vet things.
Sounding pretty fun right now. Sounds like a
Good
nice
find,
job.
Brendan.
Finances of the city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's going to wrap up that part of the issue. We'll go back, we'll come back, since the people here on that order, we'll come back in a few minutes on the eviction stuff. Let's just get through the first part of the meeting. Hearings and orders, we have 7A, the motion is to open the hearing. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. This is a condo location, Institute Road. Anybody opposed to this item? Seeing nobody opposed, motion is to close the hearing. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. And the motion is to approve. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. We have we'll come back to executive session in a few minutes. Petitions. Petition may speak for no more than 3 minutes on the first time the item appears on the agenda. So 9A to 9D, we refer to Public Works. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. 9E to 9J, motions to refer to Traffic and Parking. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. 9K, Megan McCraw and Bryan O'Donnell request City Council for city manager to opt in for the city manager paid and medical leave program.
You tried. You tried, Brian.
We're going to talk about that when we get to Council HGI's item.
I'd like to speak on 9K. I wonder if we could take it at the same time.
Yeah, we'll do that. Let's just get through this part. We're going to do it
We can
next.
take those together.
Yep, in a few minutes. I think we're going right now, in fact. So we're all done with that. So we'll take 9K, which Council HGI's item is, what was that, 12G? Request that the city manager provide a report on the feasibility of implementing a paid medical and family leave program for the Worcester municipal employees. Council HGI?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the petitioners left, but I've been in conversation with Olivia for, I would say, maybe since a while ago, and we finally were able to put this in on the agenda. So for folks that are not familiar, in 2018, our state enacted the Paid Family and Medical Leave Act to provide family leave benefits to most private sector workers and state public employees to care for themselves and family members experiencing illness, injury, pregnancy, childbirth, and adoption. As you saw from the testimonies, you have expecting mothers, you have couples that are wanting to grow families, and they simply can't because the absence of paid family leave. Now, in Springfield, just a few months ago, City Council President Jesse Letterman had a resolution on the Springfield City Council that got passed unanimously for the city of Springfield to investigate what it would take to opt into the paid family leave. And for those that may not know, we would have to request permission from the state to enact this. Now, the important thing about this is, as someone who's had 2 young children, and I remember those days when you are really anxious about going back to work and caring for your family. I mean, I feel for our city employees. This is not just an issue that pertains, folks that are having children and growing their families. It's people who might experience injury, illness. We just came out of COVID. We should be able to provide that option to our employees. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not an expert. But what my order is asking specifically is for us to get a report back, and perhaps Councillor King might have that in his committee, to find out, maybe do we have different paid leaves for different departments, but most importantly, to get a report back to understand what this would mean in order to enact for our city employees. I think it's a good policy. It's workers' rights. It supports workers' rights, obviously. I think that a lot of our city employees that I've talked to throughout the inclusionary zoning ordinance debate that we've had have shared with me that they are struggling to make ends meet. They can barely afford to live in the city. This would most likely and most definitely provide some much needed support. And most importantly, I know that you've been having a lot of discussions around retention and recruiting, and I definitely think it's time for Worcester to consider this. So that would be my ask, is to perhaps have this go to MLO if Councillor King is okay with that, but for us to have a discussion on what it actually means and what would be the benefits and the implications of doing this in Worcester. Thank you.
Have any of these employees just thought about beating the shit out of civilians immediately before pregnancy, and then just the city can put them on paid temporary leave like they do with another department that I won't mention?
For upwards of a year or something.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know that I certainly worked hard along with Raise Up Massachusetts, which is an organization dedicated to making sure people have these sorts of options.
Every now and again.
I also know this was part of what was called the grand bargain, Mr. Chairman.
We give out keys that don't actually open anything.
I maintain it's any plate glass window you throw it at.
Supreme or prime overtime opportunities for some laborers. So there was some negotiations there as this moved forward.
I know one of the things that's trying to be fixed is that this will be also included for teachers, so we no longer have to do the
Mr. Chairman,
dang pooling that they have, where if someone's got cancer and needs extra treatments, they have to put in this whole thing, like being like, hey, does anyone have some sick time they could donate to me?
They could trade sick time?
Yep. And they are forced to for things like being a parent or having an illness or
bargaining question.
I mean, I think I saw one that was related to just needing time for
is there
COVID.
any of our
That's sick.
But most of the time I see it for cancer
would even
treatments
include any
coming up on the school
aspects
committee
of paid
agendas.
maternity or paternity leave. I know that in state,
Fucking
in
wild
my
shit.
personal particular collective bargaining agreement.
So disgusting.
That we have with the state.
And I don't even think
when people
non-teachers
get
can
X
do
amount of
that.
weeks in
I
the
think it's
actual
literally
contract
just the
outside
teachers
of
that have that option.
PFMLA or PFMLA
Yeah, I think it's,
leave,
as I understand it, it's
that's
managers at
actually
City
paid.
Hall
Is there
have
any
that
of our
option, but nobody
contracts,
below that.
that we have for our employees include that sort of provision through the chair.
Mr. Manager?
So disgusting.
Through the chair to the council, I'm not 100% sure in terms of.
I don't know
It's
if they're
nice that they have at least that.
Family or paid leave.
I don't know if they still do it, but for a while,
labor agreements
teachers
have
were
different
doing work share to do
perspectives
something
on
similar
different
as well
leaves,
too,
whether administrative, personal time, et cetera,
specifically
depending on
around
what they've negotiated.
children needs
But
of
we'll be
children.
happy to include that as part of the report back to the council.
Thank you. No, I think we have to move swiftly on this if we want to be the model employer that we strive to be, Mr. Chairman. I know we have, I've been approached by some fathers who have concerns regarding parental leave. We know, as I've talked about previously here on the council floor, about the sandwich generation, Mr. Chairman, we're going to continue to see blossom. And that sandwich generation are those individuals that find themselves not just caring for their children, but caring for their parents. And it's becoming more and more of a reality here in the city, in the Commonwealth, and across the country, Mr. Chairman. And when you think about some of the affordable housing needs that we have,
Christian King
all of
talks
this
so
stuff
much
sort of
because he's one of
plays
the
into
few
that,
counselors that
when we're
wants to do
talking
something.
about caring for everyone, Mr. Chairman. We know that part of this grand bargain includes 12 weeks of paid
Not a
family
common
leave,
opinion.
26 weeks of paid medical leave if you're caring for a child or a parent, and other provisions. And it requires that we, as a municipality, adopt the laws provided by a vote here, a majority vote. The way we opt into this is we must vote to opt into the PFML under Mass General Laws 157M, Section 10. And once that's completed, we need a notarized letter sent out. And then we need an additional documentation as it relates to the additional form that needs to be filled out. So when we're talking about feasibility, I'm assuming we're talking about money and finances. My question to the chair, to the administration, do we have an idea of how many folks have gone off of payroll for this sort of leave, through the chair?
Mr. Manager?
Through chair to the council, I do not have those numbers in mind right now.
So we'd like to have that as part of that feasibility report as a separate order, that we get some specificity on that, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm inclined to certainly have this in municipal operations. I think it's an important issue. I would make a quick turnaround on this, you know, and come out of that committee with a recommendation on how the council should move forward with regard of voting to opt into Mass General Laws 157M Section 10. I think it's doable. I think it's necessary. We're a model employer, and that's what we've always strove to be. And, you know, you talk about a younger workforce. We talk about folks being able to live here. To hear that someone's working for the city making less than $20 an hour is concerning, Mr. Chairman. Just today, I talked to some folks that were here from the community whose rents are going up $1,000, Mr. Chairman. They're going up from $1,200 to $2,200. This particular person shared with me that a property management company bought their 3-decker. The lease rent out, and it's going up to $2,200, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we get a report back. I know that other municipalities have looked into rent control.
And sadly, that's what I have to charge for my 3-bedroom.
On the state level.
Because we just had to put in so much to bring electric and roof and
give us some information,
all sorts of other updates that, because code changes. So I think we probably put
we are not able to make sure that
200,000 into this house in the last
that we have a
3 years.
Workforce that can afford to live
And
here, Mr. Chairman.
We can't
So
afford
I'd
that
like
long
to
term, so we had to
see this
we
in
had to
committee,
increase.
and
And
I
that's the
would
kind of
commit
program
to
I
a
was
quick turnaround
talking about
for this,
when I
and
spoke.
you know, hopefully we can get that done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I currently have one structural issue left, and that one's going to cost me $60,000.
Gross.
Mayor Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the council for her order. And I think it's a good order. I know we've been talking since Eric's been state manager about retention, but also the benefit package in itself. This is being one of those items, and it just amazes me we don't have a better package, because we talk about, I always assume we weren't paying enough in some respects in some of the jobs, which is true. But people also look for the benefit package, and family leave is almost it's given to almost every employer, I think, in the state.
We just had someone else blow through the intersection, but was followed by a police officer.
We can do better. But I know
got
we
right
pay
on that.
short-term disability for
Kate sent a text
it says
message.
6 weeks. We only get 4 weeks, I think the lady was saying. And so you only get paid 4 weeks. You have a 2-week period where you don't get paid. That's my understanding. It says 4 weeks you do get paid. But I think the point
When he leans forward like that, he has a real Pennywise vibe.
Retirement.
Very creepy.
So you could be out definitely on critical service. You're on unpaid leave, and you don't
Cannot
critical service,
unsee.
short-term disability or long-term disability. So people
Joe,
are working,
it petty.
not going to their retirement until they come back.
Travis, get us a red balloon. Come on.
Behind in the retirement benefit package also. So this is something we've looked at even on the vacation.
That's what he's going to
package,
do if he
people
doesn't win the
factor
mayoralship.
sick time and how they have to accumulate that, how that works is a detriment to us hiring
People consider getting a
And
no-show
so the benefit
job to
package in
state.
general has to be reviewed. And I know you're doing this.
I have
so I do
paid family
appreciate
leave.
that. We've talked about this a number of times.
I use
so
it to go to my
thank you, Mr.
timeshare.
Manager. I just want to thank the people who spoke tonight and Council Haji. Thank you.
Council Mara Carlson.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. This is something, as Councilor King mentioned, about Raise Up Mass.
Oh, of
did the
course,
work for
Cryptid.
this.
Of
This is
course they
something
are.
that the AFL-CIO had been very, very engaged in.
And I'll
And
bet
I
it's
know
probably
that
2 bedrooms,
I've
not 3
had several
bedrooms.
conversations, and when we talk about somebody who's making $19 an hour,
There's someone
I
in the
think
neighborhood
if
who's
we
charging
as
for
council
a
look at
third
some of the
floor
employees
3
who
bedroom
work in the
with
city,
no
you may see
updates.
that there might be employees who are working,
$3,400 a month.
unfortunately, for less.
Christ.
I remember not too long ago.
My
when I
apartment's
first
going
got
up to
elected,
17
there was a
for
whole lot of people
a
not
2-bedroom.
making a tremendous amount of money.
That's
I
pretty
know the
decent.
previous
1750
administration
in terms of
worked
where the market's
hard
at right now.
to move these positions up.
I think.
And
In
I
terms
know
of
this
like,
Right.
it's not
administration,
it's not
because we talk about
outpacing
it all
the
time,
average.
for
The
the
average is
employees
bad,
who are
but
working in the city of Worcester, quite honestly, these days, the benefit package
I wish we'd been able to keep it
certainly
more
isn't
effective,
there at all
inexpensive.
in comparison to what it was years ago. Because quite frankly, years ago, when I worked for the city, it was a very different package and what that package was worth. But I also do have to say, as somebody who has struggled when I worked for the city and had parents that were very sick, quite honestly, there wasn't much there for me and my family in terms of any type of relief. It's hard to believe that in 2023 that we as a city don't offer these types of benefits to people who are just quite honestly looking to make a living and raise their families in the city of Worcester. I think it's great that we are finally taking a look at this, and like I said, whether you're in the private sector or quite honestly, even working for the state, they offer these benefits today. And I think we're a little slow to the draw, but I definitely have an appreciation for this administration and for this city manager.
I was also told a
because, quite
dishwasher
honestly,
increased the value $100
he's been
a
the
month.
guy who's been willing to take a look at these benefits and knows
When I was initially
how
pricing
much that this
my
means to
units by mass
people.
landlords.
So I do think it's
Air
a great
conditioning, because we've got central air,
order, and I
that
look forward
supposedly
to this coming
increases
back
it
to the
by
council.
$100 a month
Thank
as
you.
well. Yep.
Council Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recall I have a cousin who had a number of children while she was a city employee. I won't say what department because then I'll be pointing her out. But when they retired
guess.
After 20 years of service,
20 years of service.
blown away that their maternity leave took away their seniority and their ability to retire at 20 years. And it just didn't seem fair. And I think that that's that was mentioned tonight as well. And I think that that's important to recognize. I mean, life throws curveballs at all of us. And whether it's
Oh my God,
a
shut the
pregnancy or
fuck
whether
up.
it's a family member, as Councilor Carlson had said, that requires care, or even ourselves.
Also, who the
It's
heck
very
can
difficult for
afford to
those
retire
people who
after
are
only 20 years?
living paycheck to paycheck, and even a little bit more than that. It's very hard to lose that income. And I think that what was mentioned here tonight in terms of a benefit for the city, if I recall growing up, my mother always said, you may not make a fortune working for the city or the state, but you're going to have great benefits. And I think that we need to take a look at that as well. And I think it's important that we
Sarah, leave the bunnies alone.
respect and treat our employees with dignity. So thank you for supporting.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll send that to Mo. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Okay.
Silly dog.
Let's go back to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
What,
on
George?
9D, could you send that to the administration? 9D, you sent it to Public Works. It's a
Hang on.
repair.
9D, so the motion is to send 9D to the administration instead of Public Works. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Okay.
Outside bunnies.
Are these staying for the, I don't know, it's unfair. Well, we'll just go through some of the appointments first. Transmit information communication relative to the reappointment of Lucilia De Jesus and Johanna Hampton Dance to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees. Thank you for your service, and the motion is to place that on file. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Recommend appointment of Taylor Rich to the Advisory Committee on the Status of Women. Taylor Rich, I want to thank you for your service, and much appreciated. Roll call? Roll call.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Calorio?
Yes.
Councilor Hajier?
Yes.
Councilor King?
Yes.
Councilor Carlson?
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Rose?
Yes.
Councilor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty.
Yes.
Yeah,
Transmit
man, South
information
Mom,
commu-
that's the move. It's the very common move.
By the camera
Transmit
angle.
Information communications, economic development, housing strategy, as well as the goals for fiscal year 24, including the
That person doesn't want to be on
Affordable
camera.
Housing Preservation Program. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the, this.
She has
this
been sent
council
out of the
item is
room.
extremely important.
The
'cause I
person
think
that was on
it's gonna
camera?
Highlight a number of programs that we offer.
No,
as a
the
community
dog.
to
Because
the
she's
community,
not
to
going to
our
leave the
residents.
bunnies that are eating
We
all the
wanna
clover in our yard
enhance
alone.
them. We made some adjustments to them.
So
But at the
we
same
won't
time,
have
we're
Tara
thinking
Bork
creatively about
for
what other
a few
options
minutes
that
at
we
least.
can do as a city to improve the housing stock and provide more affordable options to folks here in this community. We have a number of programs that we offer as a city. Our Chief Development Officer, Peter Dunn, has done an outstanding job in articulating in this report some of those programs and what are the measures and kind of ways in which people can get engaged and know what all these programs mean. Because oftentimes people get
real zoom in.
confused because there's a lot of nuances with them and challenges, as we know, with some of these programs. Some of them are federal programs and they're funded by the federal government, so they has certain procurement elements, reporting elements. I mean, it's pretty cumbersome. But we want to show that we have a significant interest in housing in the city. We have a significant interest in providing not only affordable option for mixed option to the community, but also at the same time introducing or making folks aware that we have these programs available so people make those investments in their communities and in their neighborhoods. And particularly one program that I think will help to strengthen our housing stock in the city, especially our 3-decker housing stock, to retain some of the rents at a rate that could be beneficial for our residents in the city. So I just want to, again, congratulate Peter Dunn on his work in this effort. We sat together and we thought about ideas and ways in which we could communicate our housing.
He's the smart guy. I'm the dumb guy.
Inclusion
You
and
know,
rezoning at many times.
he does nice stuff.
Important tool.
I babble about it up here. I get paid more than him.
But again, it's one tool out of many other tools that we need to put it forward in place. And this item here articulates all those tools that we have in introducing new tools as well. And so With your permission, Chairman, I would also like to bring Peter Dunn to the podium and explain a little bit about the new program that we
Because I can't
have come
explain
up
it.
with.
Peter explained the things that I just don't understand.
His research and analysis.
I'm the hype man.
brought forward
Peter's
a
the meat.
creative idea to us here in the city.
Mr. Dunn? No.
Is it on now? There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Just wanted to highlight again some of the points that the manager made as we were reflecting on the spirited discussion with council and the community on inclusionary zoning. A lot of us talked about how inclusionary zoning was not a panacea, was one tool in the toolbox as part of a larger strategy. But we realized that we don't always maybe communicate or articulate that strategy and how these different pieces fit together to form the whole as well and as often as we should. So we thought that this would be a helpful informational communication for the council to talk a little bit about that. And first and foremost, our strategy is always guided by the strategic priorities of the city, opportunities for all, strong neighborhoods, and equity. And we really organize our programs and initiatives into three primary pillars, those being housing production, preservation, and healthy homes, homeowner, tenant, and unhoused assistance, and then the third being public policy. So this kind of gives you a little insight into what are the elements of each of those pillars, how do they fit together, built on these foundations of the local, state, and federal resources that we leverage consistently and our community-based partnerships, because a lot of what you'll see in here is not just the programs and initiatives that we do at a staff level, it's really working together with our partners in the community, and we thank them for all of that hard work because we know that there's a lot of needs that the community is facing, a lot of challenges, and really working together is the only way that we're going to be able to really do our best to satisfy and address those needs. I also wanted to highlight that this year we're applying for a grant this June for the development of a housing production plan. So we have had
There's the plan
previous
for a plan.
studies, the Chamber had commissioned a study as well that really highlighted the need for housing production at all levels and in a variety of housing types. But this housing production plan, we feel like will take a deeper look into that and help us come up with some more quantitative benchmarks on, when we talk about the different needs of the community of senior housing, how many more senior units specifically are we striving to achieve? How many more public housing units in partnership with the Housing Authority? And they're doing a great job right now, really looking at their assets and trying to do more. And then the
Not
different
unless I
kinds of
missed it,
housing
Jack.
types, both rental as well as home ownership opportunities. So we feel like that's going to be another helpful guiding framework. And then as we always could have more resources doing more, and if we have situations where our resources are limited and we need to start being more selective about the projects that get funding, potentially through the trust fund, but through our other channels as well. Those projects that are most aligned with the housing production plan and the greatest needs of the community will be those projects that are most prioritized for those limited funding opportunities. And then also this affordable housing preservation
pretty much.
program that Andrew talked about briefly. One thing that we know, and we heard a lot of testimony and continue to hear that even I think tonight from some of the callers and speakers, is that one of our most vulnerable housing stock in the city is our 3-decker experience, really that 2 to 4
Experience.
property in the city.
What a weird term.
What's happening with
Fucking
more investment
experience.
attracted to the city, which can be a good thing, but we also want to make sure that we're protecting our
Yeah,
residents.
getting
and
built
protecting
by
these
my
housing
landlord
stocks.
from Florida is
And
really a
we
fucking
know
experience.
for a long time, this housing stock, particularly the 3-decker experience, has been what we call the informal affordable housing stock in the city, where they've been at rent levels that are at affordable levels. When you think of the rent that's fair market rent, as HUD would describe for our community, but these are units that do not have deed restrictions. They don't have that protection. And so by creating this new affordable housing preservation program that we're looking to pilot, we're really trying to target those units and target this sort of naturally occurring or informal affordable housing stock so that we can try to preserve that rent level when those properties are sold. And so we're looking forward to launching that this summer, piloting that with $1 million. And hopefully if that's successful as we think it will be, we'll try to keep that growing into the future. And then also just following up on one of the orders that was unanimously approved by the council in terms of the recapitalization of the rental assistance program. So we had some success with that with the CARES Act, and we know that there are other efforts, particularly right now, the state's rental assistance.
Yes, he did, Jack.
program.
And
but we have identified and working with our community partners on this, some gaps that
she's been
exist. So when we
after him
talk
for the
about
sidewalks
the
she's
ARPA funds
talking
that we've
about
had and how
for
that budget
years.
would be adjusted and would respond to the needs of the community, both emerging or persistent needs, and really trying to fill these gaps to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind. One key issue with the RAFT program right now is that it requires a notice to quit. And at that point, landlords have already invested a lot of time and energy into that. And once that notice to quit comes onto that renter's record, it could impact their ability to secure future spaces to rent. And we want to make sure that we're not having that unintended consequence to those families. And so what we're trying to do with this recapitalization that the council had supported in a previous meeting is really making sure that we have eligibility for rental assistance that's not limited to those that have a notice to quit. And there was some flexibility
But
during
yeah,
the pandemic
it's
where that
perfect.
notice to quit was not needed for eligibility. And so we're looking to make sure that we continue to have that option with this $1 million to fill that gap. And so that's just a couple of highlights that I wanted to mention. And I also wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation for our housing development staff, led by our housing director, Jim Brooks, and also wanted to recognize that Mr. Brooks has been selected as one of this year's Thomas S. Green Public Service Award recipients from the Research Bureau. So we're very lucky to have him leading that team. And whenever we have these ideas about, thinking about what needs are still out there, can we do more? Can we figure out more programs? The answer is never no. And it's not that easy to do with all the kind of tasks that are in front of the housing division right now. So I really wanted to make sure that we take that moment to recognize Jim and his team for all their efforts as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we have Councilor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dunn, if you don't mind, through the chair, I just have a couple quick questions. Congratulations to Jim Brooks on his very worthy acknowledgement. And I want to thank the housing development team and the economic development team for this very creative kind of presentation of initiatives that are going to be many, many tools in the toolbox, not to belabor that point. I do have two quick questions, and one is in and around the housing production plan. I guess I'm just curious a little bit about process. There are many competing priorities within the city, whether it's ADA compliance or senior housing, getting to 60% AMI, like an overall unit count. I'm just curious, when we think about demographics, just making sure that we're not leaving anybody behind through this process. We're thinking about not only demographics of today, but I guess demographics of the future. And just curious about if you can just give a potential sample of what this process might look like through the chair to Mr. Dunn.
Sure, through the chair to the councilor. So it is something that we're hoping to get funded out of a grant opportunity. So we are a housing choice designated community, so that enables us to apply for the housing choice grants of the Commonwealth. And this is one of the recommended activities that you can do with housing choice grants. So we're applying to that in June. And typically these are required for communities that are falling short of their 10% affordability threshold under Chapter 40B. So that's one of the reasons we haven't been charged with doing this before, but we feel like it's going to be a really helpful guiding framework for us and really taking a deep dive into those demographics. And so we'll have a lot of analysis that's done. I'm sure we'll have some community engagement opportunities as well. And to your point, I think we'll capture a lot of the different needs that exist. And I think in terms of priorities, I would imagine as we move forward, when we're seeing a particular shortage in one area, that might rise as a priority because we're falling particularly behind in that area. But I know there are a lot of needs and we're hoping to tackle a lot of those at the same time as we move forward with various production efforts.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Dunn. I know that the 10% is something that is the quantifiable number that is looked at in terms of municipality, in terms of having 10%. My understanding is that we're at 13.5% and climbing a little bit. When can we expect some of the new numbers to come out in terms of where we're at through the chair to Mr. Dunn?
Through the chair to the councilor, we do believe the Department of Housing and Community Development is working on that right now. So that's a measure that's managed by that state department. The latest numbers that you mentioned, 13.5%, is as of 2020, December of 2020. So we're due for that update, and we've been giving them information in terms of some of the local units that have been created. So hopefully we'll see that this summer, but it's up to DHCD to get through that process.
Thank you. Sorry, I said I only had 2 questions. I ended up having 4, so my apologies, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of loosely related, so Mr. Chairman, if you would just give me a little levity here. One of the things that the city has relied upon over the course of the last few years is HDIPs and housing development incentive programming. And I noticed that the governor put it in her budget, but it didn't make it out of the House. And I'm just curious if it doesn't move forward in any way, if you wouldn't mind, just not trying to put you on the spot, just getting a sense of how that impacts some of our planning and some of the things that we may have relied upon in the past, or we can save it for an economic development committee meeting.
Sorry, Epic. I was ordering food, not paying attention. I need to make the Idella Hazard fan club shirt.
I'm just curious about that.
And that is a sick t-shirt idea. Eamon did triple decker decadence, which was pretty cool.
Through the chair to the councilor, just briefly, there's a lot of different perspectives about the program and its success, and maybe some changes that could make it better. And I think those are some of the details that the legislature is looking at right now. But there is an oversubscription right now in terms of the availability of tax credits. So that program has 2 components: the local tax exemption and then the state investment tax credit. They're very oversubscribed on that. They're not taking any new applications for that. So just in terms of how that resonates, when we had the recommendation for the Franklin Street project with Go Venture Capitals, we're starting to have to figure out how to bridge this kind of financing gap and support that subsidy basically just through the local effort, because that subsidy may not have had to be as significant or supportive if there was tax credits available at the states. So it is helpful to continue to leverage our resources by leveraging the state resources in support of these projects and bridging these financing gaps. So it's a great tool that we hope to see recapitalized.
Thank you. And the reason why I asked that, Mr. Chairman, is because there are a lot of things related to housing that come on the state and federal level that are out of our control, which in turn force this municipality and Mr. Dunn.
Did you guys see that Phil Palmieri running in D2?
Attack what we're calling.
That's awesome.
What we know
Clear in
as
a path. You love to see it.
So my final question, Mr.
City is so silly.
Related to inclusionary zoning.
Candy and Phil cannibalize each other.
I guess.
Perfect.
The question is, through the chair to Mr. Dunn,
The only question that remains: do we get short-haired Phil or ponytailed Phil?
I believe he's ponytailed Phil. Although he never came and dropped off the check he promised to drop me off.
What's this translates for the economic development?
He's not getting my vote.
Payment in lieu of taxes. You're talking about all these things that, if I'm understanding correctly, are coming online like relatively quickly.
It will be fun to relitigate that Anthony Petroni gets himself a parking lot for his rental properties.
Incredible.
Because that is one of the best stories of the past year or so, I would say. It's just so indicative of how petty and provincial these people are.
I'm just curious. And again, we can, if you don't have a response to this, we can certainly wait.
I have a whole story about Phil.
I was just curious. This is going to come along quick, and it's going to have pretty immediate impact, which is what the hope was of myself and our colleagues to kind of get this moving quickly. But just curious what the ramifications that this has on the department overall and moving this expectation forward as quickly as we're hoping it would move forward. Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilor, we did have a brief description of that in the item as well, because to your point, when if the vote takes place to ordain that ordinance tonight, it's not like that's in the rearview mirror, I guess. So we've been working to make sure that we implement that effective immediately if that takes place. And so there's a lot that goes on in terms of making sure that the review process for whether it's a site plan approval, building permit, and those systems. Now we have somebody in the housing division assigned to reviewing building permits that are.
I wrote a story about
projects
Phil.
of 12 units
I'm
or more
posting
to
it.
ensure
I can't
compliance.
post
So
it in
we've
the
done a
chat
number of
directly, but
things
it's in
so far and continue
the
to
side
actually
chat.
have a meeting on it tomorrow just to make sure that we have some of these sort of stopgap measures in place to make sure that we're not letting any projects kind of slip through
Him
the
and
cracks.
Candy have beef,
But it's
goes
part
way
of a
back.
more comprehensive implementation tool where we'll have to draft deed restrictions and set up, annual compliance and monitoring, because this will continue to grow the inventory of the affordable housing that requires that.
Oh, man, Mom, I
monitoring
didn't
for
see Ike
compliance and
McBride
all
for
that.
D4.
So it is.
That's interesting.
There's a good amount of administrative effort that goes into implementation as well.
Thank you, and I am confident that you and your team will do everything in your power to make sure that all this gets actualized in the timeline that we're looking for. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to publicly thank my colleagues for their support of my order around the $1 million in rental assistance. I've personally been overwhelmed with responses from residents and all throughout the city and District 1 and throughout about how meaningful that is to them, and that they can certainly see a light at the end of the tunnel in the short term. So I just want to thank my colleagues for that, and I will certainly pass on any well wishes or congratulations or thanks from people to each of you. It's a very powerful order that came through that wouldn't have obviously been able to take place without the support of all of you. So thank you so much.
All set? Thank you. Okay, we have Council Coro, followed by Council Hagia and Council Toomey.
Thank you. The first thing I want to say is I want to thank the city manager for launching this new affordable housing preservation program. Ever since I've been on council, whether it's been on the council floor
Literally
here
not a new
or it's
program.
been in
It's
the
just a
office of the
summary
city
of what
manager, I've always talked about and spoke about and supported creative affordable housing. And when I say creative, just a little background. I was brought up in a 3-family. I live in a 2-family now. So I'd say 90% of my life has been in a 3-family or a 2-family. And that's a whole different lifestyle. It's a whole different way of life. Worcester has a lot of 3 families and multiple family housing. And I always looked at it and said, I know many landlords and I know many people that have lived in the city all their life, and they are just good people, unlike, people talk about slumlords or people from other parts of, the country that invest into Worcester. These people really have a kindness and they want to have housing for people. And when I originally brought this up with the city manager,
My
I
mic
said,
disconnected for some
I
reason.
know people that have 2nd floor, 3rd floor,
I don't remember
maybe
what I
even
said
a
now.
1st floor available, but it requires maybe some upgrades or maybe some things that are out of code or maybe asbestos or, lead. And
I
if
think
you
they're
can't
talking
afford
about
to
just
keep
only
your
one
rents
portion
down
of this
at a
report
reasonable
rather
rate,
than the
you
whole
can't
report,
put
which
the
is
30,
really bugging
40,
me.
50,000 into that unit, but they would if they had it, but then they would have to charge a higher rent. So this program is, Mr. Dunn, if I could ask you through the chair, a couple questions. I think this program is the vision that I had when I spoke about this and when I shared with the city manager about the working with these landlords in the city to keep their rents affordable, but yet to upgrade the units so we can make it to go on the market. Is that true through the chair?
Mr. Dunn?
Through the chair to the councilor, this is definitely a response to a lot of the commentary and stories that we've heard in a lot of different settings about the 3-decker experience. We do have, just to be clear, the amount to address like code violations or upgrades as part of an existing program, Worcester Housing Now. It's a more involved program because then that landlord will work with them, but there's a scope of work that's developed, hiring contractors, getting responses from contractors can be challenging with all the work that
The
they're
3-decker
tackling right
experience,
now.
also a great
So
band
that's,
name, but only
something that
for
we're
a
trying to make sure that
novelty
we're moving forward on
act.
quickly. But this new program is also more low-hanging fruit, where it's designed to support units that are already in good habitable condition. They get a certificate of fitness from the inspectional services department. So it's really a grant in exchange for that deed restriction. No upgrades are maybe necessary, but if we go in and do that inspection to make sure that this unit is of good standard and there are issues identified, then we actually have a referral so that they can get some resources to help address those code violations, and then we still get a deed restriction, but it's just kind of these two programs working hand in hand to tackle that need that we're seeing.
So through the chair, this is really a win-win for the landlord because that means additional rents for the rent landlord, and it's a win-win for a new tenant that could be in a place that has an affordable price tag to it.
Food
and one of
ordered.
the things that I think,
Well done, Bill.
and I hear
Congratulations.
from many people in the city, when we're talking about
I eat
affordable,
during.
whether it's groceries and medical bills or whatever it is,
I totally
is
forgot
that
about
a
dinner
lot
as like a
of
concept
landlords
until
don't
Travis
have
said
any
something.
kind of a lease.
I always
So
do.
they're
I
at
always
will
forget
with their
about eating
landlord. So
until the end of the
they
day. And I'm
Until
like,
you
why am I
let's
ravenous?
say $1,100 in rent, but they're
Is it
nervous
till you
that,
see me
as
eating?
heard,
No, it's just around 8
that it
o'clock.
could
My
be
girlfriend and I do the same thing every
2,200
goddamn day.
go up that
Next thing you
fast.
know, you're down in a
ADHD.
bottle of ranch dressing for no
One of the
obvious
things,
reason.
The third, Brendan, the third bottle over the night, you
I'm not
know.
one to ask for
I still cannot find this fucking hidden valley.
kind of restrictions, but I am going to make a motion here that this program is only offered to Worcester.
They hide it really well.
Landlords.
It's very hidden.
And when I say Worcester landlords, not Worcester people that live in Worcester. I'm sorry, people that live in Worcester that are landlords in Worcester. That way, we don't have outside companies that have invested in they and they.
I like that.
We
It's a
wanna
good
offer this
proposal from
program
her.
to them.
Yeah.
I think that this should be for the
Broken
people
clocks.
that
Can't be
are
right twice a
living
day.
in Worcester,
Yeah.
landlords that are living in Worcester that own
Exactly,
three
Yenni.
family or multiple families. in
Great
Worcester.
minds
And I'm
think
not sure if
alike.
That can be
Mhm.
done, but it could be, at least we could look into that. Thank you.
Which always
Just
makes
want
me
to
go
report
back
back on
to
that.
the Disney Channel.
When-
Great minds think for themselves.
Yes.
I was gonna say the genie told me great minds think for themselves, but I didn't think anybody else would get the reference.
Idea?
Tara!
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
See you in a bit, Yenni.
Mr. Dunn, thank you so much for putting this together. I know that in the long 12-month long debate that we had on inclusionary
Chat, what do you
zoning,
think
the question
Tara
was
did?
asked many times around
Poopy.
articulating
I
clearly
think she
what
ate a
the
bunch of
city
food
is
she wasn't
doing
supposed to.
and both in terms of economic development and how these projects affect our housing. So I appreciate you coming up with the framework and articulating that. One of the things that I see as a concrete byproduct of this framework is the housing production plan. And I think you and I had a conversation about the fact that we're overdue for this. And my hope is that whatever goals and categories and metrics that
I
come
live
out
in a
of that,
first floor
that we have a
apartment,
dollar
and one of my
amount
fears
attached.
is that my dogs are going to see
Why that's
something on the other
important
side
to
of the
me,
screen window and just jump through it.
is that oftentimes these plans articulate a really great vision. They articulate all the numbers we need to meet, the quotas we need to meet. But really, when the rubber meets the road, we need to know what dollar and what
Speaking of
investments the
which.
city needs to make. And so that's really important to me. And I'd like to make that in form of a motion that when we apply for it, that we have a clear idea about how we're going to finance, because this is not going to come cheap. It's going to require some investments. I have talked about
But it's how that would require this plan being practically implemented in the future.
The fact that
That's
we don't
not
have a
what
line
we're doing
item
here.
for specifically coming out of taxpayer dollars for housing production. We're dependent on the state. We're dependent on private entities. I want to put a plug for the HD program. I've been a vocal opponent of the HD program in the way that it stands. I think that incentivizes really expensive rents up to $3,000 for a tiny home that nobody can afford. And just want to put a plug for Senator Eldridge does have an amendment on the floor to make HDIP more affordable. So to attach a 20% cap requirement for affordable housing. So I think that we just need to make sure that when we're talking about these frameworks, that we're also taking a look at where we can advocate with the state. I want to say that you and I had a discussion on affirmative housing and how we don't really have a strong arm of legal entity other than the community legal aid and the project, which the name escapes me of, housed that under, I believe now with the restructuring under HHS. But I do believe that whether we have incentive programs for the landlords, that affirmative housing needs to be at the center of that. So what I mean by that is that right now renters are extremely vulnerable to discrimination in the renter, whether they have a housing voucher, whether a family with children, whether they're Black, brown, immigrant, refugees, non-English speaking. I think
Really have
it's
a
so
pet.
important that Worcester takes a strong stand for renters that are super vulnerable. And I know that their landlords want that as well. And I'm happy that you have some restrictions and going to monitor and evaluate how this program, the pilot program, supports that principle. One other thing that I want to share regarding the National Occurring Affordable Housing, I think you and I talked about the fact that it's great that we're targeting 60% AMI. I would like to, once we have the data, that we target folks at the 50% AMI, understanding that those folks and renters might need subsidies. So maybe figuring out if we can pair it up with housing vouchers. And again, Mr. Manager, I think we have a legislative person on staff. I think it's really important that that person reaches out to the state and is engaged with our state delegation to support some of these efforts at the state. So MRVPs and making sure that HDIP has affordable housing restrictions. The last one I want to ask you, Mr. Dunn, is one thing that I've been wrapping my brain around, and because it worries me a lot for places like Lincoln Street Village or Washington Heights. I know that when housing advocates negotiated those particular projects to be extended in terms of their affordability, we know that there's an expiring use. So 2025, Lincoln Village might revert back to market rate. I think it would be helpful if in this plan that we have a clause for how we are going to make sure that we preserve those subsidized units that might 5 or 10 years from now might be expiring. I think that I know you and I had a conversation about that. I would love to see that in the plan as a way to preserve our housing units. And I'll end with this. Councillor King just talked about the rent increases that we're seeing. I don't think this is going to end. I think this is a trajectory that our city is going to really see it be exacerbated in the months to come. We have no way, to Council Calorio's point, we have no way of knowing who's purchasing properties. We have no way of knowing, whether these property owners are invested in Worcester. The rental registry right now, it's the only mechanism that we have to actually track rents. And I know Commissioner Spencer and I have had a conversation about this. I know he's not ready to go there, but I definitely think that we should use the rental registry as a way to track where these rent increases are happening. It's going to help us understand who is increasing rent by how much. And it's also going to help us understand where the pockets of displacement are happening. And so I am going to put this in an email to you in the form of some recommendations. And I hope and I look forward in the development committee that groups like the Affordable Housing Coalition get robustly engaged with this process, as well as other community members. But great progress, and I really appreciate all the work you put into it.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey, followed by Councilor Rivera.
Mr. Chairman, briefly,
Going fully around the horn.
My colleagues have had a lot to say. And a lot
Haven't even talked about the budget yet.
But I do want to congratulate you as well for this incredibly comprehensive plan.
My girlfriend just asked me, do we know how much longer they're going? And I'm like, at this point, we're going to midnight.
Floor about creative ways to encourage development of affordable housing as well as workforce housing.
Come on, even Mo knows it. Look at him.
Really hitting all of that, as well as expanding the opportunities.
Speaking of which, no Bo Mertman in the chat tonight.
Three-deckers and those types of housing to be renovated.
I wonder if they're at the
old
comedy, the open mic.
And actually, this has some elements to it as well. I want to mention
now that some of us know who they are.
Wait, do you know too?
On the MBTA communities. That
what the heck?
You've really done your due diligence, and
I'm just good at keeping it a secret, man.
The numbers coming back.
I don't tell tales out of school.
I also filed an order. What was it, 3 or 4 years ago? I think on tiny homes. And
oh my God! Shut up!
That we start working on zoning for that. And I know it was on hold for such a long time, and I'm so grateful that we're going to be moving forward to work on this rather than wait for.
Oh, sorry, Yenni.
So that's really important. I know.
Yeah, I just got back. Yeah, so she decided she was going to bark at a bunny out the window, and knocked over my soda can
of tiny homes and
all over the laptop. So if I fritz out, that's what happened. Yeah. All into the bowl too, fresh bowl. You're not a happy camper about losing a whole bowl to a can of soda.
My daughter is joking. I don't know how.
Let it air out. It'll flavor it.
About getting.
I don't know. I think she might
sent my mouse across the room. Even like her tail went like.
The other thing I didn't also comment was city land disposition.
Oh shoot!
Which I think
have
is
something else that's missing. I'll be right back.
Taking property that's being underutilized. I know one of the projects.
Kate Toomey fucking grinning
that's right down the street
and chuckling about how tiny homes might be our way out of the affordable housing situation.
And that was,
as a renter myself, who can barely afford to live here, is fucking grotesque. Like it fills me with like a rage that I just cannot.
Habitat for Humanity homes being built there is a great use for it, and I thank you very much.
But she's the constituency. She's who City Hall really fucking works for. You know what I mean? Like they're not taking this seriously at all.
Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, I won't repeat what's already been said. I just
Yes,
wanted to
you will.
highlight one thing.
That's exactly what you're going to do.
That I've gotten up repeatedly. is
Kate's,
looking
if
at
I remember correctly, too, I mean, Kate's tiny home proposal at the time was all about being a solution for the unhoused. It's completely, it's the same stupid idea. It's just pivoted because we've moved on to talking about other adult things that she's underqualified to be participating in.
Yeah. She goes, "Oh, we're in the general realm of housing. Here's the one stupid idea I've ever had on this subject."
I watched
Tiny
too many of
homes.
this, on TLC, and now I think Worcester needs a tiny home village.
I saw a TikTok video on my Facebook page about tiny homes.
We good, Councilor King?
Thank you, Councilor Rivera, for making that brief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin by not congratulating, but expressing appreciation to the administration, to Mr. Dunn and his department. And I wanted to preface my remarks with that because this particular report, Mr. Chairman, this is a direct result of the Housing Coalition's efforts, the Worcester Together Housing, Affordable Housing Coalition, all the folks that came out here and testified, the work that has gone on for well over a year. It's very clear this administration is listening. Now, the inclusionary zoning isn't as progressive as myself and others would like it to be. I certainly appreciate as well Councilor Hadjiai's idea of the 50%. I'm very happy to have been on the record pushing for at least 50% AMI for inclusionary zoning. And with regards to the argument that those folks would have to avail
I think that was
themselves
me
of
in South Mom.
subsidies to afford to live in these sorts of units. I will once again remind folks that those developers are also subsidized on the state and federal level, and that often on the municipal level in regards to their taxes and grants and other things. I also appreciate this administration listening. I have been calling for a gentrification mitigation plan probably 4 or 5 years, Mr. Chairman, where I've asked to consolidate everything we're doing in one location.
At least 5 years.
In writing. So when folks come to the
At
city,
least.
we can produce.
That came up at one of the meetings that I was at for the dog parks in like
Gentrification mitigation
2016.
plan. Our job as a council and the body is to continue to push and work with the administration to move this forward, Mr. Chairman. But we know that, again, with the result of the inclusionary zoning vote, that it continued to mobilize the coalition and the individuals that are fighting this fight, Mr. Chairman. This particular report.
One of the other things that
as it relates to,
I think is important
many
is
of the different
first-time
sections
home
here,
buyer down payment plan.
causes
only
me
gives
to ask
$5,000, and
one thing to the administration.
it has to
We
be
appointed a
something
couple
you're
of people
reimbursed for.
tonight to the affordable. I'm going to ask, what was it? The affordable.
Yeah, that's
Trust
nothing.
Fund.
It barely buys
is
you the
there
front door.
minutes on their meetings.
It
through the
was
chair
put into
that we
place
can have
in
access to?
2019 and hasn't been
Have we
increased
had
since.
access to at this point through the chair?
It's literally something that sounds nice, and
Doug?
they can deflect against doing
Through the
something
chair
for
to the
renters
counselor.
by
So
saying
those
that that's a
are
thing.
recorded
We
meetings
want to get
with
people in
minutes as well.
their own houses.
And have
Those
those
are
been provided to the council in the form of a report? or is
functionally
that
useless.
Somewhere on the web, or that you can have access through the chair.
But that's good. I'm glad that some
Through
cousin
the
of
chair to
the
the
city
counselor,
manager is
it's
getting
on the
$5,000
website
towards the
with
down
all of our
payment.
other boards
That's
and
great.
commissions, because it would be, hundreds and hundreds of pages to put in the council agenda, because we have obviously all the other land use boards and commissions as well.
This particular these particular group of folks is something that I'm particularly interested in, given the housing crisis that's ahead of us. I mentioned rent control, and that's a big red flag for some folks in this body and in our community. For other folks, it's a lifesaver. My question to the chair is, what attention has the administration given in terms of looking into potential rent control? And I'll start by saying, we need to protect our elderly. We have folks on pensions, on fixed incomes. As I mentioned, we have folks whose rents are increasing $1,000 very rapidly. And part of what you folks talked about here is maintaining the folks who live here. So my question to the chair, what work, if
Rent
any, has
control's
been
never
done
gonna
in
get to the
regards to
legislature.
exploring rental
Never, ever.
control in general, and what's been done in support
Won't happen
exploration
until
of
we
rental
get
control targeted
to actually see
protect
what people are
our
voting on.
seniors?
Mr. Dunn?
And they're
Through
never
the
going to
chair to
pass
the
that on their
counselor,
own. That's
it's
going to have to
something
be a
that
ballot
we
thing.
have been researching.
They're
and
never gonna
keeping,
expose their own votes.
Up to date on in terms of the experience of other communities, how it's worked, the mixed results in other communities, and also the conversation that's happening at the state level. But because it's not something that we have any ability to really make a recommendation on at this time, we haven't prepared such a recommendation. But when the time comes, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not looking
How
for
much
a
impact
recommendation. I
does
would
Peter
like,
Dunn actually
the
have?
results through the
Like,
chair
it seems
of
like
the
they're going to
research
him
that's
for a
been
lot of
done.
this shit.
And
Well,
I'd
he's
like
just the guy,
carved out
the
of
expert.
I know he's
that
head of
decision, Mr.
ED.
Chairman,
Yeah.
to begin with.
He's the
at
guy who
the
actually
very
He's the one who
least,
sets all of it.
Yeah.
what we can begin to look at ourselves as a council.
Because he's also now in charge of the arts, and that,
targeting
as an artist in the
support
city,
for our
it
elderly
kind of
population,
concerns
Mr.
me.
Chairman. Thank
How
you.
so?
Again,
How
I
is he-
appreciate the work.
It's like a
and I know
restructuring,
that
or?
the
Yeah,
advocacy
they
will
moved.
continue.
They
Thank you.
moved cultural department back under
Councilor.
economic development.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
So the seat that used to be owned by Aaron Williams
Mr. Dunn
is
is,
no
at
longer
the
part of
microphone. I'll start
the
with the
manager's
question to him,
cabinet
but-
or whatever the hell it
Well,
was.
I want to compliment Mr. Brooks also on his work and the rest of your team on these.
Yeah, I'd say
very
he's at
different
best
housing issues. I
ambivalent
know.
towards the
And
arts.
I always say when I talk about housing, and remind folks that I'm in the real estate business, I always say that in advance. But the
Great,
reality
George.
Whoa.
is, I know when people ask me, who
Yenni,
do I ask?
did they
Who do I
add
put out there? What do I do? Just
closed captioning to
where
the
do I
Zoom
start? I
stream?
usually
Oh
start
yeah,
with
look at
the-
that.
Oh, they did.
Oh, wow.
But,
Nice.
if there were a point
I mean, they
person or
usually
if
have
it's
it on the
a-
online
or
one,
a
like when you sign in
central
from home.
location or a
But I've never seen them show it
311
on there.
Person, whatever it may be, that could act.
Okay,
as a,
well, looks like we
you
can
know,
get off of
basically as a
Facebook.
clearinghouse, because these programs are all good, but then
Yeah, they'll probably run better if it's not through Facebook.
Take that, Zuckerberg.
If I remember correctly, there were issues when we tried to do it via Zoom last. Not just with the captions.
There was just no closed captions, if I remember. But
Through the
Oh,
chair
okay.
to the counselor, it's
We'll
a great
explore it.
question, and because it's a complex ecosystem, really having that one-on-one conversation with somebody about their needs and matching them to the best program or service is really the best way to handle it, rather than exploring all of the different programs and initiatives that exist in the ecosystem. So we do have a dedicated housing intake specialist as well, and we're actually expanding that, making sure that we have that person also at
Oh
inspectional
shoot, I missed
services
it.
at Beach
Jack,
Street,
what about the quiet part out
periodically
loud?
throughout the
Did
week,
anyone
and
catch
having
it?
that collateral material information
No,
there
I
at
wasn't
inspectional
listening at all.
services as well, so that we can start to create better referral pipelines.
I was like,
And we
oh, George
continue
Russell
to have
speaking. Time to zone out.
referral program right now with the inspectors at inspectional services, where if they encounter a situation in their routine inspections, if it's something that maybe one
Marco's
of our
poor
programs can help assist
wrists.
that homeowner with, if they've fallen out of compliance with something that we might have resources for, we make sure that
How
all
could
of
that
those
be
inspectors are
comfortable?
informed about what we have to offer.
I used
so
to
that we
type like that on my netbook.
referrals.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, but is there one person that people,
12-inch little netbook.
Other than
That
just
was
working for
pathetic.
building inspectors or that, is there one specific?
That is a pretty
person
fundamentally weird
in
way to
your
be
office
typing on your
that people
laptop.
could call, or is it the 799?
But
14?
in Marco's
How about-
defense, I will say that there's
because I
no
think that
comfortable way to
message
type on
get
your
out,
laptop in those
because
little
a lot of
chairs.
folks
Oh, I
don't
can
do that,
imagine.
just because they think they can't afford it. A lot of folks don't know about these programs, and they're stopped there. They don't get to the point where they're where they have.
I wonder if he'll come to No Jerks again tomorrow night.
One of my colleagues, I forget who it was, that said about
No Jerks is tomorrow night?
apartments that were empty, and I think it was Council Florio. Now that I think of it, but
What time?
I know of
5:30 to
many folks
7:30.
in District 3
Nice.
that have empty units.
Love to see everybody if you want to be around.
And, just not rentable or not in position to.
Next time, I don't want to spread the Rona.
upgrade them in advance. And they're the folks
That's
that are
probably
not
a good call,
at the
Yenni.
building permit level yet. Maybe the administration.
Oh, food's here.
Yeah.
Yours beat mine, you son of a bitch.
That does this work, but I don't want to put all that burden on that one person. I'd rather have the community and residents and business owners and property owners and people who are looking to invest to call the 508-799-1400 number, which is the economic development number. Because oftentimes that person may be out on the field, maybe on vacation or whatever it may be, and there's people within that department that could be able to assist to answer the phone, that phone, whether it's Jim Brooks or anybody else in that team. But there is one person assigned to this that oftentimes people know who this person is in that department, but if you call the general number and there's one of the administrative staff picks up the phone number, I guarantee you they'll make sure they get that person.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
So you can't
Mr.
give their name
Manager,
currently?
One thing that I noticed that wasn't in this.
Do you not know your own staff?
List of programs. I didn't see anything about in-law apartments in there, and I would just put that as a reminder. Folks in the community.
ADUs
Mr.
are in
Manager,
there, bud.
you and I have been at coffee shops. where
In-law
people come
apartments
up
are
to us and say,
ADUs.
"Hey, what's going on with the in-law apartments?" And I just want to put a bug
Oh,
in
he did not
in
read the document.
administration's ear just to remind them that I'm still looking
Again.
for that, and people in the community are still looking for that. Mr. Chairman, the other items that I wanted to address, Mr. Dunn, thank you very much. You don't have to stand there, but my other items that I wanted to point out are very simple things. Owning property, Mr. Chairman, is a math equation. It's a math equation that sometimes is a lifelong math equation. And I wouldn't want this council or any government agency telling folks what they can sell a property that they've worked on all their life in some cases, that they use as their retirement plan. If they've got a 3-family, the good, if you want, property owners that we all talk about that have owned properties for many years, for many decades, and they finally are ready to retire and they want to put their houses out on the open market, we shouldn't be telling them what they can sell their properties for. So I just want to throw that out in advance. Mr. Chairman, when we talk about expenses in that math equation, a big part of that math equation is a tax bill. Mr. Chairman, last year, many people that own 3-deckers received an increase in their taxes to the tune of 33%, 40%, and more because of the assessments, because of the values of the 3-deckers.
That was a big reason we had to up the rent.
But they went up dramatically. And even though we voted for lowest residential property rate, many property owners look at that and they got hit with a large increase. So, Mr. Chairman, all of us, budget time is coming. What I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, is to have the administration come in here in advance, not afterwards, but in advance, to bring the assessor in and bring him, to put him at that microphone and to give us a prediction, if you will, of where these assessments are going. And for us to have that in our mind while we're doing our budget process. Because, Mr. Chairman, we could talk till we're blue in the face about controlling rent.
Anything you did was a probably better use of your time.
That major expense of taxes on these multifamily homes, especially the 3-deckers, especially the small units, then it's all for naught. So I had asked the administration to come up with not only a report, but to have the assessor and his team and the chief financial officer give us a preview of what they see in the assessed values going forward, just so that we would see. And then also look at the budget proposal and how that would affect it.
Who's running against George?
We can't set the tax rate in advance, but I think it's something we have
It's
to keep in
Fiona
mind.
Jatan Singh. She is a realtor substitute teacher.
Big part of that cost is the taxes.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to thank Mr.
Fiona.
Dunn and Jim
It's an
Brooks and
F, not a D at
congratulations,
the beginning
Jim,
of
on
the
your
name, but
award,
the rest of that's right.
and much appreciated. And
Jack.
This is a good report, and to be clear too, Jim Brooks is not getting this award because of what he did in this report tonight.
Autocorrect doing him dirty.
So a lot of stuff has been done, but I think George also makes a good point in the sense somehow we have to get more people to use the programs that we have. There's no question about that. But we've been on top of this. This council.
But my brother and sister-in-law are trying to find a place.
Small group that we have, Mr. Manager.
And they're getting bumped out to Western Mass because they just can't afford it with 5 kids on one income because she can't work. She's disabled, but she's not disabled enough to qualify.
I think you do a great job. And I don't say that.
I'm trying to find commercial spot
because these
and
programs,
there's no reasonable priced artist space. There's
what we've done.
We're moving out of the city too, and I don't love it. I want to be in Worcester, but I can't afford it.
Because there's a lot of money out there for rent, even before the rental assistance from the ARPA money that Council Rose asked for. There's been money there for that.
What's weird is I've heard a
That's
lot
what
of people are moving to
deferred maintenance
Shrewsbury
for the
because it's
three
more
campus.
affordable.
Over $1 billion.
That's
right?
fucking insane.
If not more. And that's why those apartments, as Mr. Russell was saying, don't go
There are
rent.
apartments over there
How
for
do you rent them? And they show these
14,
programs, their money
1500 for
because they
2, 3
actually use
beds.
to rehab their program, their building, I mean.
I mean, my
If you
ex-wife
find
went
the
there.
right places.
After we
thought
sold
that
our
was
house,
for
that's where
anybody
she
else
ended
too,
up.
So thank you. So refer to economic development. Those in favor, opposed,
Forget
so
it.
ordered. Now, I know we have people waiting here for eviction process. We have this administration. We have Michael Angelini here for the executive session. So I'd like to probably do, if you can do it quickly, is go through the manager's calendar, take up some of those items that we have, then go executive session, and come back for finish the audits if we want.
Seriously?
otherwise-
Come on.
And so something to think about.
You're supposed to do it
So
at the end of the
there's
meeting.
Not much I don't think on here besides the audits. So, we got the budget presentation. Can we do that? You want to do that after executive session? Yeah. Okay.
Oh no.
God forbid we keep Mike Angelini waiting.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay, so we have.
How long of a
refer to
break do you think
works,
this is going to
Treasury
be?
Information Communication on 24 water and sewer rate recommendations. Want that in your
I'm betting
committee?
a half hour.
Council Russell, all those in favor, opposed, so ordered. We have Treasury Information Communication of the Save the Date Paul J. Moosey Employee of the Year Award held on May 22nd, City Hall Plaza. So we'll file that. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. And also, Council Nguyen had asked me before on Council Haji I's item on that we all sign on. So if people want to sign on to that item as amended. Okay. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered.
Which
The family
item?
leave. The family leave.
Oh, okay.
Traffic and parking.
I don't think he was talking to you, Yenni.
It felt like she was, though.
I'll send that. We can send that to traffic and parking. Okay. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Brings us to
All right.
finance
The speed
items.
humps went to traffic and parking.
We have 10.37A, 10.38A. We can adopt those on a roll call. Roll call.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Calorio?
Yes.
Councilor GA?
Yes.
Councilor King?
Yes.
Councilor Miller Carlson?
Yo, Barry
Councilor
kind of
Mia?
kicks ass.
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Rose?
Barry the
Councilor
town.
Russell?
Yes.
Yeah,
Councilor
yeah.
Toomey?
Yes.
I have friends in
Mayor
Barry.
Petty?
Yes.
There's a bar there called the
10.39A,
Upper
which is
Deck.
Advertised.
That's like an
on a
old ski
roll call.
lodge,
Roll call.
and it's just like the
Councilor Bergman?
most
Yes.
disgusting
Oh.
display of towny bullshit.
GA?
Yes.
Councilor King?
It's fucking sick.
Councilor Miller Carlson? Councilor Nguyen?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have
I just-
condos here.
Councilor Rose? Yes. Councilor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes.
Not many. at
They
least.
are.
This is
To say they're
this is
tucked
the
away,
stuff that
but
we
they're
can do.
here.
Approve the operating and capital budget.
Not
We're gonna
enough
refer
of
that
them because they're
Committee on
usually a
Finance
first-time
at
home buyer
4
thing.
o'clock next week on Tuesday.
There definitely needs to be more of them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Cool.
I'd like to make a motion, if possible, that if we could move that meeting to 5 p.m. I work till 5. I know we've gone over this every year, but I'm not available till 5 o'clock. I am not allowed out of work on those particular days. Is there a way to amend this so we're meeting at 5 o'clock rather than 4 o'clock?
Okay, that's why I asked people to talk, they'll ask me to talk to the clerk on the times on this, so we'll have this issue, but what if we just start at 4:30, time we get going, it'll be 5 o'clock, so everybody will get here. 4:30, is that okay with everybody? Then
I just had kids screaming in the window at Tara.
Oh, I'm laughing that they just admitted that the
Amended.
first 30
Those in
minutes of
favor,
every meeting is
so
bullshit.
ordered. 11A to 11M, motion to adopt. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Councilor Nguyen, I think these are your items that people are here for. Which ones do you want to discuss? The three of them together? C, D, and E? Oh, B, C, D, okay. Okay, let's take B, C, D together. Request the city manager not allow anyone, including a special process server and the outside constable not licensed as a constable in the city of Worcester, and provide counsel to have a power and ability to execute an eviction and commit to protecting our residents facing eviction from physical harm.
Is two going to speak on this?
Request the manager work with the housing courts to report back to the council on how many evictions have been and are currently being served and executed by constables not licensed in Worcester, It says constables are
I
approved
would
by
think
the
so.
Worcester City Council and request the manager work with the housing courts to ensure permits.
We
for
just haven't
special
heard much from
process
them
service,
tonight.
and are not given any constable not licensed in Worcester, currently approved by the city council. So take those 3 items. Council Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all the folks who testified on this issue. I also want to thank the
I want to thank
Worcester
everyone who's gotten beaten up by a constable in recent memory.
for just teaching me a lot about what has been going on. As I mentioned last week, I shared that this came to my attention, but also a few of my colleagues, I imagine, that Worcester residents have been facing evictions that are being served and executed by outside constables who are not licensed by our departments here, nor approved by our city council. And so it is written in the intended law that constable powers are limited to their towns and where their bonds are tied in based on the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 279. And so, I just want to share the past few things that I've experienced, which is I've witnessed outside constables who would serve paperwork that says that is signed Massachusetts constables. And so this is pretty much, a way in which they could fear monger a lot of residents. If I had Massachusetts city councilor, people would not like that, right? And so Massachusetts constable is not a thing. It is tied to their towns. And then the other thing that I've noticed, and I was actually in court to testify against this, which is that I've seen constables who didn't have the special process permit come and actually serve people's paperwork before they got a permit. And so that's pretty much illegal. If they didn't get a special process server permit, they should not be doing that. But outside constables have patterns of doing this. We also know that outside constables are often way more aggressive physically with our residents. And then there's no accountability for them because they're outside of our jurisdiction. And so this leads to a lot of issues as well as financial liability for our city. My hope is that we can end this now as a city council and as a commitment from the city administration, to protect our residents. And currently the status quo, despite constable approval, our city council would be deemed useless if our process isn't actually honored by the housing courts. The other thing I would also like to say is that, just for some background about the special permit servers, is that, when the housing court does this, it leads to a bigger issue, which is it completely overrides our city council's decision and ability to, approve these constables, as well as oftentimes the constables are applied through the city manager. And then our chief of police would oversee the investigation and vetting, and then they're given onto the council floor. If all of that is overwritten, what would that mean for our
I've never seen that happen.
Does that mean I, as a Worcester City Councilor, could approve constables and then they could go to Boston, they could go to Springfield, they could go to Lowell, and just start evicting people? That's a huge legal gray that I think we need to take a stance as a city council to say that's not what we're allowing here. And that's what I'm requesting here today, is that our government relies on a check and balance system. If the housing court continues to give special process server permits in a manner that harms our residents and override our power and ability, when do we take a stance to protect our residents? And also, this creates a loophole in the law and government that is very dangerous to our people. And so when law and government harms people in this manner, when do leaders begin to take the stance to provide a check and balance? And so I urge my colleagues to advocate for our residents' sake and to protect them, and for our city admin to really commit to protecting our folks who are facing eviction by outside constables.
Thank you. Councilor Bergman, followed by Councilor Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I could support items 12B, C, and D once we get a legal opinion, but I think that legal opinion is going to negate the ability to support it. I mean, as somebody who practices in the courts, We could not allow somebody to be a special process server, but the judge is the one that allows that. And then I don't know whether or not we can then override a judge's decision under a Rule 4C motion under the Rules of Civil Procedure. My experience is somebody presents a motion to the judge to be a special process server. The judge either allows it or not. Routinely, the judge does allow it. I don't think it matters what the Worcester City Council has to say about that. If it does, great. Again, I could support 12B, C, and D. But before we go down that road to make something illegal that we're probably going to get overruled by the court, I'd rather have a legal opinion from our city solicitor as to whether or not we're going down the wrong road. I suspect we are, but I'd be happy
He'll
to
definitely tell you
if
the
I'm
right
wrong.
thing.
What if we just send these items to the manager along with the legal opinion, have him come back, how he's going to implement, going legally to do it, and whether he can or not?
Well, I think the other
so
question
we put it all in a package and come back to the council.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just suggest one other thing. It's not whether we can or we can't. I have no doubt we can vote on these orders. I think the question is it effective? The goal, I think, from the proponents is not to have outside constables be involved in serving eviction notices in Worcester, because apparently there's been bad behavior, which I don't doubt for the moment. But if our deciding that has no effect because the judge has ruled otherwise, then again, I think it's a waste of our energy. So I think the key question for me is, who rules over who? Who has jurisdiction over making the final call? Is it the judge or the city council when it's a special process server? And I think I know the answer, but it's not my answer for the council to accept. So if Mr. Chairman, if you're going to ask those questions of the city solicitor, I'm more than happy to wait for the answers.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, send it as a package. He comes back as a package and says, this is what I can do, what I can't do. And
the question, though, if I may, is even if we can vote this, does it have the desired result, as I think the proponents want it to have, which is to stop outside constables from getting a special process server motion allowed by the court?
Yeah,
no, I mean, tough mom.
We can pass this.
Go ahead.
Report.
Fine, thank you. Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
I think it's the usual process is let them
Thank you,
sue
Mr.
us as
Chair. I
long as
also
it's
was going
something
to
that
ask
is
for,
not going
legal
to
opinion as well,
move any
because this
progress
is,
forward. Because if it's going to move any
under
progress
Mass
forward, we
General
must
law,
stop it
and
before
so we as a
any of
council,
that
I don't think,
happens.
can over,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
write Mass General law. So
It's
I look
only a
forward to
question
that.
if it's something that is
But I also was wondering,
trying to make
there was
something
a
better.
comment
Then
that
it's a
was,
question.
stated that there was
Otherwise,
a
yeah, let's
constable
just get sued.
who actually
I'm not interpreting what two is suggesting, though, as
guilty
as Kate just said, overriding Mass General law. It's creating an ordinance that would be more restrictive than Mass General law,
my
which
question would be,
I'm pretty sure that's kind of how
what
supremacy
happens,
clause
to a
works, right?
constable
Like
if
we
they
can't
are,
do less
found
than
guilty
state
in
law,
a
but
court of
we can
law
certainly do more
of
than state law,
assaulting
and
someone. How
that's
can they
kind of
still
how
be,
law works.
constable? So I would like to get a report back on how we can
Leave it to the lawyer
ensure
to
that doesn't happen with our
fuck
own
that up.
constable.
As far as I'm aware, Stratton, yes.
The report with Council Hijack.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm a little frustrated
both
as to
questions.
why we need to wait for a legal opinion when the city could reach out to the courts and present the issue as is. I think what I'm hearing from the residents is the urgency of these evictions are happening at quite a rapid pace. And so if the legal opinion of the city solicitor is that we cannot even reach out to the housing court to have a conversation, have a dialogue, it's again, it's frustrating for me. And I understand what Councilor Bergman is saying. I'm not convinced that us reaching out to the housing court requires a legal opinion. So I'm not understanding why we need to wait for a legal opinion when we can reach out directly to them, given the urgency of the situation.
Well, that depends on whether or not you want to wait.
We'll come back to that, Council King.
And if you determine it to be actually
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
urgent.
Yeah, or if you want to
wanted
actually
take a
do
look at
anything at
some
all.
of the past orders I've filed
With your
relative to constables. In February of last year, so just over a year ago, we were here having a similar conversation as it relates to constables. So I'm going to lift up these two orders again. One is that the city manager provide the city council with a report concerning the training that occurs for our city constables to go through as part of their position. And another order, a motion I'd like to file, the city manager provide the council with a report concerning the role constables have during issues of foreclosure and evictions, as well as what constables are and are not able to do by law.
Something I'm building might actually be able to give that, Eric.
That particular, I mean, I can't
I
remember
think
exactly.
I
going
might
back
be
a
able
year,
to
but
actually
we had
do
similar
that.
concerns about safety, the lawfulness.
As part of the
these
request
folks.
tracking
Also,
thing,
what
I'm
sort
building
of
something that might be
review
able
do
to
we
do that.
have, of
Quite a good
constables
deal
that
of
we
things, I would say.
give charge to. And this, I think, is, as mentioned, an acute matter. I also support this council sending a message to the housing court that we have significant concerns for folks who are not approved to serve folks by the city of Worcester. And I also agree that that does not require legal opinion. We can certainly notify the first justice, presiding justice, or whatever, whoever that person is in housing court. I know that when we had talked about this before, we were looking at, you know, there was other concerns related to the court that were outside of our purview. And I know that we were hoping for some resolution there, but these matters should move forward, Mr. Chairman, as quickly as possible. You know, and I think that we as a council should be educated on everything we need to pertaining to constables. You know, and I don't want to get into it now, but I have questions of what we can and can't do. You know, this special permitting process, you know, and the law and all of that. I have questions as well, but none of that prevents us from sending an unequivocal message, you know, regarding what has been going on in the city of Worcester in terms of these folks and how they've been treated, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, you know, evictions are used in many instances and for many reasons, and we just want to make sure folks are treated fairly. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Webb?
What kind of STD deviations are you into,
I
Epic?
also would like to know who is accountable. I think what we often see
I'm not sure.
It's a ping pong of accountability.
Let's keep this
right?
family
It'll
friendly,
depend on
huh?
how I
In the
present it.
instance where I saw there was a constable from outside of Worcester who didn't have a special permit here yet
There's
to serve.
HSV1,
I mean,
HSV2.
the WPD is supposed to maintain peace. So maintaining peace is to just make sure nothing violent happens.
Well, the data
Except that, you know,
guides
oftentimes a special
the way it's displayed, not the other way around.
person could just come and do the thing, and the Worcester PD looks at the notice and they're like, oh, okay. You know, I think there needs to be an actual investigation
In terms
on
of how I have
who
it
is
formatted and
accountable.
stuff, and I don't think
I
I'll
don't
have it
think
for that.
It should be on our end if it's not, right? And I do agree that we don't need necessarily to have a legal opinion to have a conversation with the housing court.
Probably.
I also think that, you know, in this report, aside from just the legal opinion, I would also get a report of the solutions that the administration is willing to offer them. If it's not within our set of accountability, what are we going to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. So what we can do is take, like,
Data is very
fun.
fun.
Take all 3 AM, send
I had a lot of fun with it this weekend, thanks to Bill.
Detailed report, but what he can do, we can do. We can definitely ask the housing court, report back to council how many evictions have been given out. That's just an informational thing. D is just asking the housing court to ensure.
I think I'm going to try and keep it updated weekly.
I'm not giving it to any constables not licensed.
It'd be useful to see
the agenda meant.
I think you have to be.
Well,
licensed.
that, yeah. I was meaning the
I have no problem for manager going forward. And
agenda tracker.
B, plus the manager not allow anyone, including a special process server.
Probably about
a true statement. I have no problem.
A week, maybe 2 away from being able to publish
you can make
it.
that decision when you get these items. Look them up. It doesn't hurt to call the housing court. So that's fine with everybody.
A lot of backlog of
Just to
agendas
clarify,
to get
I
in
think
there.
the most important piece is licensed in Worcester and approved by the city council.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but if that's true, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I also get a report why he's doing that. Get a report back on what the whole so we can learn from this too, because I'm not an expert in this. So I'd like to become one. And Councilor King, second time.
Question, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the administration. In terms of the
cut 'em
allotment
off.
of constables that we have here in the city, that usually comes through the council, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the outstanding
What's
reports that
the
I'm
number we're
building
looking
this
to
for.
have and where we're at through the chair? I don't know. I don't know if there's a ratio. Is it based on what? If we need 20 and there's X amount of openings, do we have an idea of that? Because I'm just wondering the special permitting process. Perhaps if we're more proactive on our end, it'll be reduced.
To the chair to the council, I currently don't have those numbers, but I'd be happy to provide part of the report back to the council.
Okay. I think it's important that we have an idea of that. Perhaps there's some adjustment we can do on our end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to be clear. If the city solicitor can reach out to somebody in the housing court, imminently, that's great. I'm not trying to delay or stall this, but I think my concern has been that what's being proposed, as I read it, is that this city council is going to say, in what's being asked, which is sending the message that we don't care, Judge so-and-so, if you allow.
Yeah, right now it's just a lot of copy and
special
pasting or
process
exception.
server.
But
City
sure,
Council Worcester did not give you permission.
message me. I'd happy to
If we could
loop
do
you in.
that, I'd be surprised, but I want to hear that. But I don't want to be taking that step if we can't do that, because I think that's a mistake. But if we can reach out immediately to the housing court, I'm more than happy to have the answer back for next week's meeting, and I hope we can.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Chairman.
we're going to send those to the Councilor Russell.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration, does the city manager appoint the constables, or does he need to get the city council to approve those appointments? Does it come to us as an informational item?
No.
Or does it come to us as a vote?
Comes to the city clerk's office.
So if it comes to us as a vote.
That wasn't an answer,
And this
though.
council and all councils, previous and future, have the authority to appoint.
I think he was doing that as making a
I would
point,
suggest
Troubler.
this report that's going to come out should have a detailed information about the complaints that are put forward by the residents today. And it should come to this council so that we can take action on it. And it's something that.
What happened, George?
The manager, in conjunction with the law department and the police department.
George Russell's a man of action.
Their side of it. And if these people are doing something wrong.
We need to
they
take
shouldn't be
action,
working as constables.
not put items
Is
on
that-
the
is
agenda
that
to try to
simple?
curb this
Whether it's the
practice.
administration or whether
We need
it's
to take action.
the council. Well,
What are you
let's
talking
just
about, bro?
figure
Shut
out
up.
what the claims are. Let's have our.
I would love a pair of very tiny shorts made out of the same material as George's tie.
What's going on? Let's not have people doing wrong things that are being appointed.
Doing
by
Rocky
this-
Horror?
this
No,
council or
just
this
be good for the gym.
So as amended for that report, Councilor Russell's item. So send the 3 items to the manager, get a report back. And so I think everybody wants to learn what our responsibilities are, what we can and cannot do. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. We'll go to 8A, is that the City Council convene executive session at Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, meeting for the purpose of discussing litigation strategy with respect to the case of the town of Holden versus Department of Conservation and Recreation in the city of Worcester. The City Council will reconvene as amended in open session. So we'll come back to open session to after the executive session. Roll call.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Why?
Councilor Colorio?
Yes.
They
Why are
moved
they
it up
coming
for some
back?
reason. They don't want to make Rob Antonelli wait.
Councilor Yan?
Yes.
What else do they have left to do?
No, it's not Antonelli. It's
Yes.
someone else with a similar name.
Mike Angelini.
Mayor Petty?
Oh,
That one.
Yes.
I heard
the,
Parks.
The puppet master of the entire city.
Yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to make that guy wait. Somehow, Ed Augustus's personal attorney and the attorney hired by Clark University to independently investigate the way that the police forced march protesters right by their front door. That Mike Angelini? Yeah, that's great. So
Sick clock shot.
this is a new shot,
This is very artful.
and it seems like they're still figuring it out. It has a Wes Anderson vibe to me. So what are they what's left to do? What are we doing here? Hold on, let me take a look
We're
at the
gonna
agenda.
watch this clock go by.
We've
They're gonna
got
make
the
us watch the
budget
clock, huh?
presentation.
Wait, I thought that they just said. Hold on.
No,
my impression.
they're gonna do the executive session, then come back and do the budget presentation,
And then go into open session.
and then go through all of the chairman's orders and all of that stuff.
Yo, that sucks so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's, well, 11 will probably just be taken bulk. 12, some of it's already been addressed.
I thought that they scheduled the budget presentation to happen next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. I thought that that's what was happening. That's not what's happening.
That's not what's happening.
Doesn't seem that way, no.
Oh my God, that sucks so bad.
I think that's for the next session.
They just said a next. That's like the first convening of the finance committee is for that time. But they're going to do a presentation before the finance committee, and we'll just open,
tonight.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And they did that after.
Yeah, and we've got the
Mike Angelini bills by the hour.
Hey, Bill, we needed to do an episode of Power Hour anyway.
Are we doing now?
This episode of Power Hour is brought to you by executive session.
Do you think we have enough time to do a Power Hour episode right now?
I hope not.
No, we don't. I'm busting chops.
That would be awesome if I had the outline ready. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll just do it. We'll clip this later. Yeah, so we have no idea how long they'll be in there.
No idea. What'd you get for food?
Oh, I got a pizza and a little sandwich from J&J Express.
A pizza and a sandwich.
I was feeling frisky.
Carbo loading. I like it.
Yeah.
gotta have munchies for these sessions, these marathon ones. So pizza's good for that because it's good cold.
I got ravenously hungry right about when Travis said he was ordering food.
Yeah, I went to Nancy Chang and got some.
No problem, Georgeception. Go ahead. Sorry.
Pork noodle. Very good.
Ooh, pork noodle. What's it, just noodles with little bits of pork?
Basically, and vegetables.
This is that red pork?
So,
yep.
Fuck yeah.
Like pork, like lo mein?
No, it's kind of like lo mein, but it's the rice noodles. So
boneless spare rib.
Yeah, but it's the boneless spare ribs just thrown in some rice noodles. It's delicious.
Yeah,
I'm trying to go gluten free and not sounding insanely pretentious about it.
Yeah, I did cheeseburger casserole, where we did ground beef with onions and seasoning with cheese and tater tots.
Can't go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! All right, guys, what do you think we should do?
Well, I'm over here trying to figure out whether or not I can pick up one of the Baldoff Clock Company clocks that the city is using on eBay. They look like they're going for around $10. Having a hard time finding the exact make and model,
though. Bill, you had put up an article in the private chat. Do you want to go over that at all?
The Phil Palmieri article? Yeah, I mean...
Tell us a story, Bill.
All right. So, there once was a former city councilor for the Italian part of Worcester. And he takes great pride in this. But he has many Italian enemies in the same neighborhood as where he was once the councilor. One of these Italian enemies happens to be deeply connected in the local Democratic Party and also one of the highest paid police officers on the payroll in Worcester. This highly paid police officer, Italian from the east side, gets a ballpark constructed, Little League ballpark, that just so happens to give one of his rental units a parking lot, which didn't exist previously. Phil Palmieri takes this to the city council floor over the course of the past year in the form of petitions, trying to imply that Anthony Petroni is doing something illegal by getting this this little league baseball field built and giving himself a parking lot. Candy Merrill Carlson flips out because she's queen of the East Side now. Phil Palmieri's not allowed to do this stuff. She does this kind of stuff now. Get off my turf. So she flips out. She tries to hold it. She tries to delay all these conversations. Phil Palmieri doubles down. And long story short, Anthony Petroni gets his parking lot for his triple-decker rental property. It goes through. Phil Palmieri is powerless to stop it. And now Phil Palmieri is running for city council against Candy Merrill Carlson. Presumably as retribution or revenge for this slight against him personally, which he really has nothing to do with at all. And I'm not sure he even knows that there's a really strong progressive candidate in D2 that's going to immensely benefit from Candy and Phil Palmieri torpedoing themselves to their relatively small towny base, dividing the vote of those East Side Italians and leaving the rest of it to Rob Bellotta. So
the East Side Italians are even leaving Candy.
Yeah, they're gonna go with Phil.
No, no, they're looking at Rob.
Good. I hope they do.
There's a bunch of people that my husband's family is connected to that live over there that are part of that community. Like the owners of Dorico's on Shrewsbury Street that are so not happy with Candy. And there's no way they'll go with Phil. And some of them that I've already had conversations with about it, I've all been just like, wait, someone's going up against Candy who's actually a good human being? Who is this person and where can I learn more about him? And my father-in-law asked for his number so he could give him so they could talk. So, my father-in-law is on the one of the French Heritage Society, a gentleman's group, old people thing.
I think we call that Facebook.
Sounds fun.
No, they meet in person. They meet in person, and
Facebook.
They have yeah.
But they planted on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Rob has a good chance. There's a lot of action there. Do I need to disclose that I'm working on his website? I don't want to piss anybody off.
You didn't, but wow, get the fuck
Disclosure noted.
I
believe you
really
would do
hope
that.
folks will donate to Rob because he needs the money to go up against Candy because Candy's got a
Yeah.
war chest.
Yeah, Candy's hoarding gold like a dragon. And in many respects, she is a dragon.
I don't think I have her as a dragon, but we do have her.
Jack, there won't be a
That's Kate.
there won't be a primary. One, we have preliminaries, not primaries, because we don't have it based on party. But
Yeah.
two, it has to be 4 candidates for it to be a
4
preliminary.
candidates triggers the primary. Preliminary. Whatever.
When do we when are signatures due? I mean, I feel like we
May
still have time.
30th.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of time for at least a dozen more lunatics to get involved in this year's
Yeah,
cycle.
I know. Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, sure. I'll run in D2 and just
Just pull papers to fuck with people.
yeah. Yeah, that'd be funny. I don't know, whatever. I
would
thought
make a lot of people freak out.
I earnestly thought about it for about a week at the beginning of this year.
Even just as a performance piece would be.
No, yeah, I tried to game it out as a performance piece,
Mm.
and I found that it would just make things too complicated, and it wouldn't be as funny as it would be complicated, but it would be very funny, yeah.
You could just pull papers and not actually go through with the signature gathering, just to.
So if we didn't have this conversation on air, that would be a funny thing to do. But now I have to just basically say, hope you're not listening, any reporter that might write about this. I am going to pull papers with no intentions of running. It would be funny though if it got written about by the Telegram or something.
Yeah.
You only need 100 signatures?
100 signatures, yeah.
For district.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not very hard to get at all.
It's like 90% of voter turnout.
Yeah, shit.
True.
I was at the Village and I saw a bunch of people's papers. All those names are escaping me because I'm a little stoned. But like 2 is pretty well. Our buddy Creamer going for mayor. Like, I don't know. They have well over 100 already.
Oh yeah. But running to trigger a preliminary that I know I'm going to lose is pretty funny, actually. That is also funny.
But would they invite you to the debate? Because that would be also very funny.
Yeah. And
Sean Rose told me when he had 6 or 8 debates when he last ran.
Yeah.
We got to find these like little tiny debates that they host and cover those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was one that happened already. There was
Where?
a forum.
No,
that
really?
happened
There was
at
already a
the
forum?
Universalist Church.
That
There
seems
was
mighty early to me.
Like a third of the newcomer candidates were invited.
So
if I
like
remember
Domenica?
correctly, Domenica might have been there. I saw some photos from it, but I'm blanking on who the heck was there. For some reason, I'm thinking King was there in the photos, but I don't know if he was at the table.
Jose was there apparently.
I didn't even hear about that.
Jose Rivera was there.
He's putting in the legwork, huh?
Yeah.
Answering questions
He's
on Facebook.
He's trying. I gotta give him credit. He is being very active in the local chat spaces for his community, which is Facebook and Nextdoor. He's, I think, backed off of Twitter because he realizes he don't own Twitter.
Nothing good's going to happen for him there as long as Walter Bird is posting. Jose Rivera is not safe. Walter Bird is one of the most prolifically bad posters in the local scene that I have ever encountered before. That shit that he said about how Eric Batista promised that there wouldn't be a homeless shelter near residential homes in D5 and then had to delete was such a seismic gaffe for that campaign that just it tipped their entire hand. They're just going to run off of townie resentment of the Blessed Sacrament shelter.
Yeah.
And he did it in the most fucking gauche, garish way possible. And yeah, Jose Rivera could win if he fires Walter today. You know what I mean? Get somebody else. Don't.
Do you think Jose's watching us? Jose,
I get that
don't do
Walter is
that.
the person who convinced you to run in the first place because you guys had a good time talking about fucking who gets to use what bathroom on Talk of the Commonwealth. But he's not going to take you anywhere good, dude. Just get rid of him.
Yeah, he's not worth the $700 a month.
Yeah.
$700 a month. Not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad little stipend.
I was just when you said it that way, all I could start thinking about was what are the places that Walter would take Jose if you're saying, Jose, come on, let's go out. I want to take you someplace good. Where are the places that he would take Jose?
Well, they have to be pre-vetted to not have gender-neutral bathrooms.
I mean, McDonald's in Technic Square has outdoor dining now. I mean, that might be good in their eyes.
yeah, right.
I think it would probably be Jake's on Chandler.
I don't know Jake's on Chandler.
It's been there for ages. It's like the
bar?
same building that the batting cages are in across from Beaverbrook Park's dog park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a restaurant that's been there for a long time.
Word.
I walked in there and it was everyone knew who they were.
Knowing that
everyone knew who everyone else was. I walked in and everyone stared at me. It's one of those kind of places.
Yeah. Right,
even though it's a fancy restaurant.
Knowing now that Walter and Jose hang out at Scruffy Murphy's is the most predictable. I didn't see it coming, but it turns out it is the most predictable thing you could have told me.
You know what? I
Yeah.
was literally right before Jack posted that I was going to say they hang out at Scruffy Murphy's.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in retrospect. I'm just saying that I was going to say it as a joke, and now we know that is just true. Also, 2 chefs.
Still can't find this clock anywhere. I mean, this must be like real deal old school Balduff. Do you think they're actually talking about the best way to handle this lawsuit with Holden, or are they just talking about how much they're going to pay Mike Angelini for handling the suit for them?
Yeah, they're like, hey, Mike, I might have a DUI situation in Auburn. Can you help me out with that? Can you talk to somebody? I might have a DUI style situation in Auburn. I was leaving fucking, I don't know, whatever. For me, the tone of the night set by that public health subcommittee meeting, and then watching the city council meeting was tough. It was very tough. I don't know if I can handle a budget presentation, to be quite honest.
Bill, what was the how long was that hearing? And I mean, you said that
it was just an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes. It wasn't long enough.
You said a fair number of people. The majority of people who spoke were experts in
favor.
the field who were in favor of putting a moratorium in place.
Experts in the field who were in favor of the moratorium and spoke very cogently and with a lot of academic backing and authority on how doing these routine sweeps makes the problem objectively worse in any conceivable way. But then Maddie Castile, Director of Health and Human Services, and Mo Bergman sort of occupied the opposing space of being like, well, you know, here's all the other things that we do for the unhoused, and sort of dodged the sweep question. Maddie Castile did not explicitly say anything about a sweep moratorium or the idea of citing like a sort of sanctioned outdoor living sort of facility. And then after she didn't address either of those two things, which were the substance of the entire item, she goes, did I get everything? Did I say everything? And Soraya Rivera just went, okay, and then went on to the next speaker. So no one asked her directly about if the city manager's office has any plans of acting on those items, and yet Rivera moved to send it to the city manager for review after the city manager's sort of spokesman in the situation decided not to say anything at all about it. So it's just not going to happen. It's just so patently obvious that it's just not going to fucking happen.
You mentioned that it came up during that meeting that at least one person brought up the idea that this could open the city up to litigation if it's not handled properly. Have you had the time to poke around yet if that's been the case anywhere else nationally?
No, I made a note, and I think that just Googling this person's name and their organization will get me there. But I didn't know who they were when they were speaking, and the way they were sort of like a policy wonk, like head of a, where is it? Let me try to find it. Like a law firm that does pro bono work in support of the unhoused nationally. Like
Interesting.
Like unhoused policy, sort of national advocacy group. And they said very explicitly that the city's current policy opens them to litigation around a number of things, but including cruel and unusual punishment. So
I just wanted to bring that back up in relation to Mo giving us a masterclass in legal opinion tonight on what the city can and cannot do via ordinance. I just feel the timing is impeccable that Mo potentially going the other direction. I just look forward to seeing his response when we do get a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from people living in the woods somewhere.
Right.
As to how he's going to process that one internally.
It's the National Law Center for Homelessness and Poverty. And his name was Eric Tars. And let's see if
I think he's spoken before. From something last year, Attell invited him. I don't remember what though.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I think that was the same situation this time.
Yeah.
He also brought up the very interesting pointed that there are political costs for people like the mayor to continue this insane policy of routine homeless encampment sweeps, because they promise that these sweeps or what they're doing will end the visual sight of homelessness in the community, where in effect it only makes it more visceral and apparent and doesn't help anybody get out of the situation, and only increases the numbers of people who are chronically unhoused living on the street. So if you're trying to promise that you're doing something to your like reactionary towny base, that they're not going to have to look at homeless people as much anymore, and what you're doing actually makes it worse, there's going to be political costs for that, which I thought was a very salient point. And it's kind of like exactly what we're experiencing right now, after so many years of doing the exact same thing about homeless encampments in the city, and it only making the problem worse. So I'm definitely, when I'm looking at the substance of a post this week, this subcommittee meeting, I'm going to write up pretty extensively, because it was a lot of very smart people making very good points about what the city's doing, and the city very haphazardly defending what they're doing. And just not really, it didn't seem like they really knew or like wanted to really give a wholehearted defense of this policy. They just kind of like, in keeping with everything else, want to, continue to let the cops do whatever they want, right? So it was very interesting. It was heavy though. It was depressing. It's just like, oh, Maddie Castile, like the person we rely on to sort of be the expert on this sort of stuff in the city of Mission. Travis, you're muted. Okay.
I know. Ignore me.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I was intentional. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were trying to say something. But yeah, I don't know how much more I have to say about that right now. I'm thinking that we might want to not wait for the rest of this meeting. We could be on here for fucking ever. And these things are recorded, and there's nothing that's going to be too like groundbreaking that's going to happen after this executive session, and we have no idea how long it's going. And rather than blather on about what I heard from this subcommittee meeting, I'd rather actually write it up. So what do you guys think?
Enjoy tonight. Yeah, I'm good.
Should we call it?
Well,
for
there is one thing that people might want to stay on for, in terms, not necessarily us, but they might want to tune in on the Facebook page or something. But the Casella Waste Management picking up and returning recycling bins without damaging them is on the agenda for Mo Bergman for item 12J, and that one hasn't been taken up yet.
Oh, okay.
And
just crushing those new bins.
That one's, yeah. And that one's probably going to get everyone doing their little pop-up I have to speak things.
Oh God, that sounds awful.
Yeah, so let's get out of here before that.
Yeah.
Bergman,
Yenni, you made the opposite case of what you intended. That sounds like something I don't ever want to listen to in my life.
There's discussion of replacing Charter Spectrum with Verizon's Fios for the Internet of Worcester in terms of the cost savings for residents.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's
Bergman's got that on there, and Bergman's got, we need a solar spotlight to illuminate where the Declaration of Independence was read in front of City Hall. Yeah, that's an important one right there. Big important one.
Everyone knows and cares about that. Like, come on, dude. What the hell?
Not seeing much else on here that even matters, even though there's like, it goes to 13AA from the Traffic and Parking Committee. And then there's just accept and adopt from Urban Technology and Innovation.
Come on, Eric found the clock.
Send the link.
Yeah.
Pixar didn't happen.
They're changing something related to the
facts.
marijuana ordinance. What?
Wait, the city is going to impose an ordinance that overrides state law? That's impossible.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, Lowe's of all places.
Oh, it's increasing the delivery licenses, and some changes.
There it is.
Yeah, it's stuff that I'd already seen previously. It's pretty good. That's
a
supported
battery model?
by some folks. So
Well done, Eric.
Yeah, and then there's just any business under suspension that ends up getting talked about. And then tomorrow is Public Works, 5:30, and there's an Education Committee joint meeting, or not joint meeting, just a regular Education Committee on
I'm very
the
impressed.
Monday, the 22nd.
That was some great Googling.
It really
Google
was. I
foo.
was
Good
looking for
job.
a while there. That's
All right. So it sounds like we're going to get the hell out of here. And everybody should go
Yeah.
read Bill's Substack. I thought somebody was going to take over. I don't normally do this.
And any of you that do
Travis.
keep watching, just go outside with your, if it's important, go outside with your recycling bin and just start banging on it with a wooden spoon, and we'll wake back up and hop right back on.
yeah. It's like the bat. It's like the bat golf.
Yeah, no, it's like we're celebrating the health workers. People should go listen to Parts Unknown. It's a podcast, kind of. Buy our shit. WCT3k.storeenvy.com. Listen to what this cat has to say and follow us on Instagram at WCT3000. I'm going to do my shameless plug that y'all should come down to Redemption Rock tomorrow. Come hang out with us 5:30, 7:30. It's super chill, no cost. And just come meet some people from your community. Anybody else want to plug some shit?
Just that.
No?
Go to No Jerks. Great time last time I was down there. Met some really awesome people.
Hell yeah. Still at it with the bunnies.
Still at it with the bunnies.
All right, people, you did it. You wasted 3 hours of your life hanging with us, and we appreciate you. Smile.
Have a great night.
See you, everybody.